Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Evening, thanks for joining me for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Another sunny day for most tomorrow, though it will start a little grey and misty in places, a little bit hotter if anything across the south by the afternoon. Again, like today, the east coast will be a little cooler. High pressure is in control, low pressure trying to push up from the south, and just the chance that may generate one or two flashes of lightning, a rumble of thunder across the southwest of England. The cloud spills back in through the night, covering much of eastern England, even into the Midlands, perhaps even East Wales, along with eastern Scotland by morning. Further west, though, it stays largely clear. Still quite warm in the south, but overall a cooler night, certainly further north, reasonably comfortable. And we'll start off with plenty of sunshine for western Scotland, Northern Ireland, northwest England and much of Wales in the morning. But it will be quite a drab start, I suspect, over much of the Midlands, East Anglia and the southeast. The breeze not as strong as it was through today across the far south. The wind's fairly light further north, lots of sunshine, but the har is going to be fairly stubborn, I suspect, on some of these eastern coasts of Scotland once more. And the cloud inland further south, well, that should break up as we tick through the morning. I think we'll see it breaking up and then the sun will be out once more, but always the possibility of some of these coasts staying a bit misty. Still a bit of a breeze blowing along those North Sea coasts, keeping it quite cool, but as I mentioned, the winds in the south will be lighter. A hotter day generally across the south, 31, 32 in places, whereas we'll be in the high teens on some of those North Sea coasts, especially where the mist persists. It'll be back as well through Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. Again, inland it should clear away. Again, there is the chance of one or two thundery showers coming up towards the southwest, but it is just a chance. Most places having another dry and sunny day, and there's plenty more of that to come over the rest of this week. Strong sunshine persists, temperatures just trailing off a little later in the week.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's a Great British Giveaway Golden Summer Celebration. Your chance to win two fantastic prizes. There's an incredible £60,000 in tax-free cash. Plus, you'll also get your hands on a fine gold bar worth over £5,000. For a chance to win £60,000 in tax-free cash and a real gold bar, text GOLD to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB22 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 21st of August. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pooled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dordme, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it? Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
GB News is completely unique in the way that we interact with our viewers.
Our audience aren't afraid to have their say. They want their voices heard now, and they've got a channel where that can happen.
I find more and more as I'm wandering around, people come up to me and they say, "We saw you on television." I say, "Oh yes, on what?" "On GB News."
Hello, are you the famous Sue? The whole crew hid me here now. We came to celebrate.
It's our job to be the eyes and ears of the viewers.
They are part of the GB News family, and I'm pleased to say it's a very large family.
And if people go to the time and trouble of listening and watching, then we've got to do a good job for them.
Well, I'm here right in the epicentre of the protest.
Here we go again.
You just tuned in. Where have you been?
It is raucous here tonight.
That's what makes us the fearless champion of Britain.
Very good evening, good morning to you live from Washington DC. This is Bev Turner on GB News with the stories that are shaping Great Britain and the United States of America tonight.
The circumstances of her death are extremely distressing. Counter-terrorism policing have now taken the lead in the investigation.
So terror police are now in charge of the investigation over the alleged murder of Anne Widdecombe, raising widespread concerns over the safety of politicians in Britain. Also tonight.
As an example, we're going to hit them very hard tonight, and we're going to hit them hard tomorrow. And there's not a damn thing they can do about it. They have nothing. They have nothing going other than they have big mouths.
That was President Trump just a few hours ago, pledging a night of fresh strikes on Iran. Now, this comes after the White House reinstated their blockade in the Strait of Hormuz earlier today, also tonight.
Iran and Russia cannot be allowed to use different proxy organisations to threaten security and safety on Britain's streets.
What do you make of this? The Starmer government have used their last week in office to finally proscribe Iran's IRGC, designating them a threat to national security and banning support for the group. But why the sudden change of tune now before Burnham gets in? Also tonight.
I said, if you don't change your energy thing and get away from windmills and go back to oil and gas, and you have something that's no other country has. Very few countries have anything like it, the North Sea.
Breaking for Late Show viewers tonight, energy leaders are calling for MPs to drill, baby, drill, and open up the North Sea to meet climate obligations as well as boost jobs, communities and the economy. Are they right? Also, that was earlier today. President Trump hosted motorsport stars at the White House ahead of the Freedom 250 Grand Prix through the streets of Washington, D.C. That's going to be fun. I'm Bev Turner. This is The Late Show Live. Warm welcome to Late Show Live. As you can see, Niall Gardner has made it here. Laurie Watkins, we're still expecting to burst through that door any minute now. Roads are a bit busy here in Washington, D.C. this evening, as they sometimes are, especially when there are important people in town. And in London, we've got Benjamin Butterworth and Conservative councillor, new face for The Late Show Live, David Moore, is with us as well this evening. Thank you so much, gentlemen. We will be back with you very, very soon. Thank you to all of you for joining us, and thank you at home this evening for staying with us. Now, The investigation into the death of former MP Anne Widdecombe has taken a dramatic turn tonight after counter-terrorism policing took over the case following what officers described as new information and evidence. Police had initially said they had no reason to believe that her death was politically motivated, but a 28-year-old man already under arrest on suspicion of murder has now been re-arrested under terrorism legislation. Investigators are stressing they have not yet established a motive and are urging the public not to speculate. The case has inevitably reignited concerns over the safety of Britain's politicians. The murders of Joe Cox and Sir David Amess exposed the growing risks faced by public figures, prompting fresh calls for tougher security measures.
I recognise the particular concern that the Reform Party will feel today, and of course Nigel Farage, the party's leader. I'm happy to offer a meeting for Mr Farage with the chair of RAVIC, the independent body within the Home Office that manages the security of those in public life. And I will also be looking at what security guidance can be provided to former members of Parliament, which I hope to work with you on, Mr Speaker, as well as those who serve a party outside of this place.
So today, the first Monday after Anne's murder, tributes were made to the Reform immigration spokesperson from all sides of the House.
I also think that the Scottish whisky industry has lost a very discerning customer. And maybe there could be a limited edition, Widder's Whisky, where the tasting notes may reflect unique, unforgettable flavours, a fiery, spicy series of tones, but a blend to be treasured to eternity. May she rest in peace.
We're just going to wait for Laurie to make it into the studio before I talk to Niall and her together. So let's go first to writer and columnist Lois McClatchy this evening. Hello, Lois. Thank you for joining me. Thank you, Lois. We're not here to speculate, and we can't now. There's an active case underway in terms of the motivations of the accused attacker. But Lois, what occurred to me, I think, particularly over the weekend and today, was the reaction from so many people who would see themselves on as the hashtag Be Kind political left, coming out and celebrating the loss of Anne Widdecombe, an absolute one of a kind, a fearless advocate of free speech above all else. And I think that's so heartbreaking, Lois. What have you made of what you've seen online the last couple of days?
That's right. Well, you know, Anne really represented the best of British political debate and engagement. And unfortunately, in her passing, what we really have seen is the worst of what's left. In that we've seen people come out celebrating her death because they simply disagreed with her views. No respect for a liberal society, no human decency for somebody, a lady, a member of people's families, a much-loved national treasure who has passed away. What I think is most concerning is that her views, particularly her faith-based convictions on marriage, for example, and sexuality and things that have come up within her political lifetime over the years, are the ones that have been particularly used to attack her and use her, the word bigot, to come after her. I think we saw Peter Tatchell, the well-known activist, celebrate her death with that word bigot on Twitter. Now, he has apologised and deleted the tweet, which is the right thing to do, but it's the impact that we see spreading across those who follow and amplify these kinds of insults, which really shows a dark day for the British political discourse.
And a lot of this happened actually, Lois, on the social media site Blue Sky, which a lot of people won't be familiar with, but this is cast as a left-wing echo chamber. That's not how they would see themselves, but it's meant to be the friendly alternative to X. So lots of commentators, even people in the public eye already, journalists, who came off X because they didn't like to be challenged, have gone to Blue Sky. And the content on Blue Sky would make anything that you see on X look like child's play. I was shocked, and I think it's worth pointing out to people that Blue Sky is one of the social media platforms that is not included in the teen ban. And I would genuinely urge any politicians who have any power in that debate to go onto Blue Sky, to have a look at what is being said on there and decide whether that is the kind of crowd that we want our teenagers to be communicating with, Lois.
Yeah, again, it's the echo chamber effect has insulated so many young people from thinking that nobody in the country has a different view from them. You know, Anne is being used as a kind of scapegoat for all these social conservatives, really like me, and like many others in our country who do hold a traditional view of marriage, who do hold that life is sacred in the womb and that we should do all that we can to help women avoid abortion. These are values that she championed very boldly, very bravely in her career. But it wasn't just her. You know, 15% of the country, according to YouGov, has a traditional value on marriage today. Many people have concerns about abortion and particularly the escalating use of abortion in our nation. So it concerns me that this echo chamber of blue sky has insulated young people and isolated them so much from the rest of society that they don't realize that when they call somebody like Anne a bigot, they are really talking to far more people that they rub shoulders with in their neighborhood, around their local pub, in their shops as they go about their lives without knowing and understanding other points of view.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the kind of thing that Anne fought for. And she did this famous speech, which has been now watched many more times on social media. It's been replayed and replayed, in which she said, being offended is an occupational hazard of being human, and nobody has a right to go through life thinking they cannot be offended. And in some ways, I think when people like Anne Widdecombe pass away in this, or they die, or they'll lose their lives in some awful circumstances, it kind of gives us an opportunity to genuinely consider what she stood for. And we didn't do enough of that when she was alive. You know, she was often the butt of the joke. I remember hearing one high-profile commentator say about Anne Widdecombe that when he wasn't sure how he felt about something, he wanted to look at what Anne Widdecombe thought, and then he knew that he would believe the opposite of whatever it was that she stood for. And I think that's very reductive. I think it's too reductive with someone like Anne, because there was sometimes nuance to her argument. She wasn't always landing on the side in black and white. The one thing she hated was black and white thinking. She wanted to often step into the grey, because she felt that that was where people would learn, and that they would actually start to think more strongly about life and not just be ignorant. If you had to sum up her life, Lois, really, how would you do that? What did she contribute?
Gosh, well, I think you've really picked out that she was intelligent and that she had something to say, and she articulated it, and she articulated well and boldly, and sometimes to the point of even offense. But she did it with a warmth, and I think that's what's come through as we look back over those clips of our life, that we can disagree, and we should and must have these debates that are so important when it comes to different social policies in society, but that we can do it recognizing the dignity of the others involved. And so many people have come out to say, you know, I disagreed with Anne, and my lifestyle is very different to what Anne would have backed, but we were great friends, and you know, we spent lots of time together, and we appreciated and respected each other. And what a legacy to leave behind in a Britain that is more divided than ever, in a culture which cannot get on even over small differences. That Anne could bridge that divide and have intelligent conversations, not pretending that she agreed with everybody, because she didn't, but doing it in a way that put forward her argument clearly and yet showed respect for the dignity of others. I think we should be inspired by that going forward.
Absolutely. Lois, thank you so much for your time tonight. Lois McClatchy there, reflecting on the life of Anne Widdecombe and the abhorrent reaction from so many people on the left online. Laurie Watkins has made it into the building now. Very formal. Laurie, thank you so much for joining us.
Sorry, y'all, they were paving a road right near here.
Don't worry. I said Washington is the kind of city where roads often get closed just like that to let somebody
when the
wander
rush
through.
hour happens. Yes.
Exactly. So apologies for you having to race here tonight. Niall, just your thoughts on Anne Widdecombe. Of course, you knew her, and you obviously, I guess, respected and admired a lot of her position. And I think what I loved about her, and this is the first time that I've been on air, so forgive me if I just indulge a little bit about how I grew to respect her, because I know people have been talking about this a lot over the weekend. But I love the fact that she didn't walk into a room and want to be liked. And that's all too rare these days, especially as a woman, actually, that she didn't walk in and think, my job here is to win over the people in this room. It was, my job here is to walk in, be myself, be authentic. I might make some enemies, but I'm going to do that with warmth and with a smile on my face, because she was all about integrity, all about what she believed in. I didn't always think like that about Anne Widdecombe. I've been on a bit of a political journey myself, but I didn't used to feel like that about her. But in more recent times, I grew to massively respect who she was for that very reason. What did you respect about her, Niall?
Yeah, she was a very courageous political figure, actually. You knew what she thought about practically anything. She was fearless, but she was also very witty. She was funny. She made people laugh in a very good way. She brought a real genuine warmth, I think, to a lot of political debate. I think she is one of the most unique, political figures of our time in the UK, actually, and she is greatly missed today. There are very few politicians, like her, actually, and she was an incredibly strong defender of freedom of speech for everybody. It didn't matter whether you were on the right or the left. She defended free speech. It was a subject for wonderful Oxford Union debate speech. And she was, in my view, I think one of the finest, politicians of recent decades. She was also, I have to add, a very staunch Thatcherite, and she was a very strong, admirer of Margaret Thatcher, my former boss. But I found Anne Widdecombe to be, a wonderful person. She had a great personality, and a genuinely warm and kind figure. And there's a lot to be said for a political figure like that in this day and age.
Laurie, were you familiar with Anne Widdecombe before this week? Because as an American, particularly being politically more Democrat, I don't know whether you would have been aware of who Anne was.
I had heard her name. I was not oblivious to her name, but to know the detail that I have learned since her passing, which I hate when that happens, I'm sorry that I didn't know more about her. In fact, anyone, in my opinion, that uses their right, especially Americans here in the United States, of freedom of speech, as you all have said, that to me is everything. So if and whether or not I agreed with everything that she said, it sounds like she led with her conviction, and she stood up for other people and what she thought was right, and she didn't do it to impress other people. And so I always find that admirable.
I think you would have disagreed with absolutely everything she said, if I'm completely honest, Laurie. But
you never know.
but as somebody, and maybe it's irrelevant, but I don't think it is in this case, but as a woman, because politics is often a very male environment, I think you probably would have, as you say, admired the fact that she stood up for what she believed in. She didn't mind making enemies. But the reaction that we've seen from some people on the left politically is very similar to when Charlie Kirk died, and there were so many people online bowling in to say, good, I'm glad, blah, 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 this person deserved everything they got. What do you say when you see that kind of rhetoric from your side of the political aisle?
So I believe that you can tell a lot about a person in their reaction to death, whether it's a person that they admired or that they despised. And here in our country, we also lost Senator Lindsey Graham very unexpectedly yesterday morning. Well, Saturday evening, everyone found out yesterday, Sunday morning. The same thing, or if not exactly the same, but very similar is happening on the other side. I'm not even saying it's left. There's plenty on the right that have things to say about him. But one thing that stood out when you were talking about her legacy, that she stood up for things, I just want to point out that yes, I'm alluding to something, but and it's not that I'm afraid to say it either, but right now I think too many people are making choices by following people that they think that their legacy will never live on, or that their obituary might not capture everything that they are working on or supporting or being complacent in, if that makes sense. And I wish more people stood up, like let people know what you stand for. Don't do it behind the shadows. Like if you're going to do something, do it. That's how I believe. So I feel that I've heard that about this woman.
Yeah, very much so. Let's go to my panel in London now. Benjamin, if I can come to you, let me come to you first, David, on this. Your response to the reaction that we've seen from some people on the left. I'm reluctant to name names because I don't think two wrongs make a right, actually. I don't want to call out those individuals because many of them have actually subsequently apologised and taken down their posts, etc. But what did you think about some of the comments you've seen about Anne since her death?
What I saw on Blue Sky was just like what happened with Charlie Kirk, that there is a lot of hatred and intolerance for those who seem to disagree with their worldview. They decide to comment the most horrific comments. And in this case, with Anne Widdecombe, a conviction politician, a social conservative, a Christian, who in my view was martyred for what she believed in, just like with David Amos, where he was stabbed to death for his faith and what he believed in. We are living in a very dangerous time in politics now. 40 or 50 years ago, the left and the right had an understanding that you would disagree, and there was that. And apart from the troubles in Northern Ireland, there was a relative consensus there where violence was rejected. And now I've seen it over and over again, like Charlie Kirk, and in this case, Anne Widdecombe, where conservatives or people on the right are facing death threats, and in this case, murdered. I'm not going to comment on specifics of this investigation, but this is treated as a terror attack. And some of the comments I've seen, Bev, have been horrific.
Yeah, they really have. Benjamin, your thoughts on this, particularly the fallout, the kickback on this, people just celebrating Anne's death, just as they did with Charlie Kirk. I don't think we've seen the equivalent from what you might call the political right in the event of the death of somebody that would be deemed to be on the left.
I mean, the people that make those comments are very few and far between, and they're peripheral. I mean, it's not as though any Labour MP or high-profile centre-left figure has made any comment like that. And so, you know, the fact that I think the Socialist Worker newspaper put a horrific headline saying, "Hurrah, she's dead," shouldn't reflect on everybody that believes in social democracy or democratic socialism. You know, in the US, you did have something similar, which was when Paul Pelosi, the fairly elderly husband of Nancy Pelosi, was brutally attacked in his own home in a way that sadly resembles what has been reported about Anne Widdecombe. You saw many Republican congressmen, or a handful I should say, Republican congressmen and senators make jokes out of that, including Donald Trump, that made some mockery of it, which I just think is incredibly grim. And the other week in this country, we had Sarah Pochin, a Reform MP. She was on a breakfast show the day that it had been the conviction of the 2 Ukrainians that firebombed Keir Starmer's private house. And she laughed when she was asked about that attack, which, you know, didn't get much traction, but I just thought was an incredibly weird way to behave. Who cares what his politics are? His house was attacked and his sister-in-law lived in it. So I do think it's a problem of our times that social media lends itself to extreme views, and to those views getting traction of people think that they're acceptable and they're not. I mean, I'd worked with Anne Widdecombe a few times. We used to be paired together on Channel 5 on the Jeremy Vine show, and my experience of her was the one that you've heard from so many people of different politics. Which is that it wasn't her politics that drew me to her. That was never going to happen. But it was her character. And my late grandmother was a big fan of Anne Widdecombe, and I used to tell her that, and so I felt a degree of affinity to her. And after my grandmother had died fairly quickly from a brain tumour, I told Anne about how I was trying to manage that grief, and I don't know that she particularly wanted to have the conversation at first, but she did. And she told me a story about how her mother, who had died in 2007, that she would go to a local restaurant near her and she would get a chocolate and banana split for dessert, because that was her late mum's favourite dessert. And she always knew that that restaurant would give her that food and that she would remember her mum by that. And she told me this very personal information because she said to me, you know, do you have ways to remember your grandmother that can be really reliving her, like I bring my mum back by going and get that chocolate and banana split? And that was such an open, personable thing for her to do, such a considerate and kind thing for her to do. And that's why my reflection on some of the reaction is that we live in an age where people think you have to have the right politics and that you are worthy by the politics that you espouse and the loudness of your political opinions. But actually, I think what was impressive about Anne, for me, wasn't her politics, because I don't share it. It was her character. And character is quieter and clearer, and it doesn't pass with political fads. And she had good character. And I think that's why the people that knew her, of all different politics, speak so highly of her.
Isn't it funny, though, Niall, that... Thanks, guys. Isn't it funny that when we think of people who might be at risk of harm, we now lean towards looking at those on the political right? It's the Reform members. It's Nigel Farage who needs his security. Why?
Yeah, I think that, you know, what we've seen in the aftermath of the Anne Widdecombe murder is, a real lack of empathy from so many on the left. Blue Sky, you look at the comments coming from there, they're absolutely horrific, shocking, disgusting, absolutely shameful remarks.
And straight away after she died, straight away in the immediate aftermath.
The reality is, I think that politicians on the right are far more at risk, frankly, from political violence today. And there is such a huge amount of hatred overwhelmingly from the left. There are some instances as well, hate coming from the right, but you look at what the left pours out every day, the invective towards conservative politicians on the right, and the endless threats and so on. It's absolutely horrific. It's horrendous. And Blue Sky. Thankfully, I'm not actually on Blue Sky, but it sounds like a new version of hell, frankly. And it's barbaric, isn't it?
Are you on Blue Sky, Laurie?
No.
It's absolutely.
I thought you might.
No.
It's shocking, really, and it's a damning indictment, I think, of where the left is today in society.
Yeah. Let me know what you think at home, won't you? gbnews.com/your say. Chris Christys King says the right holds offensive opinions too. We, the right, just don't care. We debate, we disagree, and then we move on. Well, we've got a lot more of that between now and 3 a.m. because still to come tonight on The Late Show Live.
Iran and Russia cannot be allowed to use different proxy organisations to threaten security and safety on Britain's streets. That is completely wrong, and that's why we've taken this action. I have felt very strongly about this, particularly around the IRGC-backed threats.
Well, this is a turn up for the books, isn't it? Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper today spoke strongly in favour of a government banning the IRGC. What took them so long? I'm going to be joined by Emma Schubert from the Henry Jackson Society to tell us why. This is The Late Show Live only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though. I'm so surprised. I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From cold mornings
to warm family brunches,
from football to tennis in the car,
in the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again to start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter? So that's a very live question. Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way. You will not want to miss it, trust me.
The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dordme, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters. Real people and real lives That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
As an example, we're going to hit them very hard tonight, and we're going to hit them hard tomorrow. And there's not a damn thing they can do about it. They have nothing. They have nothing going other than they have big mouths.
That was just about 6 hours ago here in Washington, D.C. President Trump warning of a night of fresh strikes on Iran, with the ceasefire all but torn apart. Has the president got himself into a forever war? That's coming up shortly. And the government has finally banned Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and formally designated the group as a threat to national security after months of pressure from security experts and backbench Labour MPs. Have a listen.
The IRGC itself has a long history of using proxies and criminal networks to target people in the UK, including our Jewish communities. So today, under our new state threat powers, we're designating this criminal group the Islamic Movement of Companions of the Right, and we're designating anyone found in these groups will now face prison.
So this means the IRGC will be banned from the UK, and anyone carrying out work for the group could face up to 14 years in prison. Now, since 2022, the security services have foiled more than 20 IRGC-linked terror plots, including a plan to assassinate 2 Iranian journalists in the UK. With me now is research fellow at the Henry Jackson Society, Emma Schubert. Emma, thank you for joining me. Now, you have been asking for a while now why this hadn't been done sooner. So your reaction, please, to this news, and why now?
Well, it's a very welcome development. This current government has been saying for some time that the current prescription framework in the UK, which is the Terrorism Act, was not sufficient to fully prescribe the IRGC because it was a state-backed threat as opposed to a non-state-backed threat like Hamas or Hezbollah, for example. Now, whatever you think of that argument, the National Security or State Threats Act, as it's called, is a very open-ended piece of legislation, which is actually a very good thing, because it means that not only can it apply to the IRGC, it can also apply to other state-connected groups like the Taliban, for example, which has for decades exported terrorism to the West and continues to do so. It also means that we can use it potentially to look at groups like the Muslim Brotherhood, which is very involved across the Middle East with the IRGC and also in Africa. So it's very welcome legislation, if not a bit too late.
I just wonder, Emma, whether this is partly because it may be unpopular with some members of the voting public, let's say in the UK, those who might vote for the Labour Party. Keir Starmer pushing this through before he steps aside and parachutes in Andy Burnham. Does it mean that he's got Andy Burnham off the hook? So if anybody has the temerity to criticise the Labour government for having prescribed this group, Andy Burnham can say, wasn't me, it was the Prime Minister before me, don't blame me for this. Is that what I'm seeing here?
Well, it would be convenient if that's the case. It does mean that the next Prime Minister, the next government is in no way off the hook, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on who you ask, because the law has to be enforced. So this new piece of legislation is all well and good, but if it is not enforced to go after anyone who is supporting or attending meetings of or otherwise celebrating the IRGC or the IRGC-backed group, abbreviated as IMRC, it's also abbreviated as HAYI. These are the same exact group. It's just the English translation versus the English transliteration of the same IRGC-backed group. These things need to be enforced. So Andy Burnham is in no way off the hook.
And Emma, I understand your other area of expertise is about sectarian voting in the UK and how powerful that can be and how effective that can be in terms of certain religions voting for certain parties. Where are we at with that in the UK at the moment? Is it something that we should be mindful of and concerned?
I think we should be really worried about any time any kind of sectarian group leverages the democratic process, that is the private vote, for non-democratic means. So we did see a rise in what we called Muslim sectarian electoral success across the English local elections 2 months ago now. And this is worrying because this is a political movement that really co-opted the war in Gaza, and it is furthering a political idea that has really nothing to do with the UK and is known for spreading really undemocratic ideas. We know that there's some councillors, for example, that have been elected that we define as Muslim sectarian that have, for example, called for the end of free mixing between the sexes. So these are non-democratic, non-liberal ideas that are being voted in at the local level across England and the UK more widely, and we do see that as a huge threat to British democracy.
Okay, thank you, Emma. Research fellow at the Henry Jackson Society, Emma Schubert there. Let me turn to my panel on this. Niall, the fact that the, thanks Emma, the IRGC have now finally been prescribed. Why now?
Yeah, I mean, it's taken an incredibly long time for this to happen, and successive British governments have been incredibly slow to act, and I think it's, you know, it's the result of a continuing desire to appease the Iranian regime. This is one of it, and also, of course, a desire to appease Islamist fundamentalist elements in the UK. It's an absolute disgrace, and especially considering that the war against Iran, led by the United States, has been taking place for several months now, and only now is the British government, led by, you know, lame duck, soon to exit Keir Starmer. Only now they're actually taking some action, and the IRGC, of course, is a terrorist movement operating at the behest of a terrorist state, and so I don't see why there has been some, you know, hesitancy or confusion over this. It's completely obvious, of course, the threat that the IRGC poses to British national security, but you have spineless, weak-kneed, you know, leaders in power who do nothing. And only now, after immense pressure, including from the United States, let's not forget,
I'm wondering
US
whether
pressure played a key role actually in this sudden change of heart by the Labour government.
Well, I'm wondering whether Trump had a word with Starmer at the NATO gathering maybe last week to say
he may well,
hurry
actually.
up. Like, what are you waiting for?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they have been a terrorist organisation here, and Emma there mentioned the Muslim Brotherhood now too. This might open the pathway for that, Laurie.
Yes, and having more countries come online to designate the Muslim Brotherhood, which for some countries is tricky because the Muslim Brotherhood is the one that is actually facilitating or running their country, even though on paper they wouldn't go so far as to say that. So it can get difficult, but as far as this situation is concerned, I myself have been puzzled for some time of why they haven't. I thought maybe it was a strategy of why they weren't coming to the table because Trump didn't include them as an ally at the beginning, didn't communicate with them the intention of why he was going to do this along with Israel and Netanyahu. But the fact that they did it is good, but I do think that the United States played a part in putting the pressure on the UK to say, why haven't you done this already? And to also use it as like a sticking point to Starmer on his way out. Like, you could do something good, or you could do something grand or big, or go out on a high note. You could do it with this. As far as sanctions are concerned, that's a legality that I hope more of your experts come on to talk about, specific to British law and what that means. As far as them designating them now, does that do anything as far as sanction relief or non-relief, etc.? I'm curious about that. Do you know?
I don't know. Let me ask Benjamin and David in London about this. Benjamin, let me come to you. Do you have any idea why the Labour Party have decided to prescribe them now?
Well, I mean, hopefully the reason they've decided to actually prescribe them is because it's clearly in the interests of national security and the morally right thing to do. I've spent quite a while investigating the IRGC in the UK back under the Tory government, and I was utterly perplexed as to why we didn't prescribe them as a country. And there were several answers that I received at the time from, well-placed experts. One was actually put that the US wanted us to not prescribe them then because it meant they had a channel of communication. That was a suggestion that was put several times. Another was that there were still hostages, British hostages in Iran, and it was thought that if we prescribed the IRGC, we wouldn't get them back. I don't believe that there are any British hostages in Iran now. So those were some of the suggestions put. I tried to put those questions directly to Tom Tugendhat, who was the security minister, but he notably refused every single interview opportunity on this topic when he was in office. He's since and before that job been very supportive of prescribing them, but something obviously that he knew when he actually had the gig stopped him from doing it. So, I think it has been alarming. I know that when I investigated their behaviour, I think you said there'd been 20 plots. Well, I spoke to about 6 people involved in 6 of those plots, and it included a Jewish man, an elderly Jewish man who hailed from the Middle East, that had an assassination attempt on him planned for his home in outer London. He had to have his whole house refitted by counter-terror police and was told he couldn't walk his own grandchildren in London. There was another man who lived in Covent Garden at the time, in a small flat, and when he was walking out, he had people try to drag him into the back of a van speaking Farsi, the language that they use in Iran, and that was dealt with as a counter-terror issue. And there was a woman who had been in prison in Iran, Anna Diamond. She went on the record, and when she'd got back to Britain with lifelong damage from the torture she suffered in prison, she was always going to hospital. And one day she was walking to a hospital in London and she got a phone call from a man saying that he was a part of IRGC and that he knew exactly where she was going, he was watching her, and that if she kept criticising the regime, someone was going to pose as a nurse, as an NHS nurse in hospital, poison her, and nobody would know how they'd done it. Now, that is the scale of intimidation they were carrying out on British soil, and yet still it wasn't prescribed. So I really don't know how they let it go on this long.
Yeah, fascinating. Benjamin, thank you. I'm sorry, David, we've run out of time, but we're going to come back to you on this in a little while, because still to come this evening on The Late Show Live. That might explain why Laurie Watkins was late to the studio tonight, because you were fighting with an F1 car on the streets out there. President Trump gearing up for his Freedom 250 Grand Prix in the streets of DC. Don't go anywhere, we're going to be discussing that only on GB News.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter?
So that's a very live question.
Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way. You will not want to miss it, trust me.
The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless, and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Late Show Live. Now, President Trump revved up his America's 250th birthday celebrations today as he welcomed IndyCar drivers to the White House ahead of next month's inaugural Freedom 250 Grand Prix in Washington, D.C. The president was even presented with his own custom racing helmet and declared the event would become the most watched race ever. Of course he did. Have a listen.
So, Mr. President, thank you again for this opportunity. And I think we have a special helmet for you. Am I right, Alex? We do. We hope you will wear that when you're riding around in the Beast.
So the street circuit is going to wind past some of the nation's most famous landmarks, including the White House, the National Mall and Pennsylvania Avenue. With me now is Motorsport Programs Manager of the Summit Point Motorsports Park, Greg Haas. Greg, a very good evening to you. Great to see motorsport being brought to the centre of Washington, D.C. As someone who has been fortunate enough to be in Monaco for the F1 Grand Prix, I know how it takes over a city. But how do you think Washington will cope with this? Because it's very different, isn't it, to having a race on a track?
It's going to be pretty good. Washington, D.C. is the home to many big events. And logistically, I think they are well up to the task. So I think that's going to be a non-issue, really. It'll be exciting.
It really will. And do you think President Trump is a kind of natural motorsport fan? I seem to think he prefers people fighting with their fists, not necessarily their horsepower.
Well, I think it's the excitement of a national pastime, something that you can't go anywhere without finding someone who has that motorsport passion beating in their heart anywhere you go. So I think it's very appropriate.
And do we know much about the actual event and what we're going to see on the day and kind of when it is? It's August, isn't it?
Yes. Fortunately, it'll be nice and warm, so no one will have to wear too many clothes, which is good. It'll be a good day for that. It's going to be a really exciting race as races go. I was looking at the track and what the cars are capable of, and the drivers are going to earn every inch that they get out there. The corners are tight. The acceleration is going to be very dramatic down each one of the straights, and it's going to be a pretty exciting race.
And do we have any idea how many people we think, Greg, or what do you think as somebody that works in motorsport in this country? Obviously, IndyCar is huge. How many people are going to be at the event?
That is very difficult to say. I couldn't even begin to speculate. There's a lot of people that are used to traveling to DC for events that are excited about this race. There's a lot of fan base for the Indy cars and racing in general. So it's no telling how many people will make it to the event. I think they'll have a great time.
And how important is motorsports to America, given that our audience is predominantly British? You know, we obviously have huge heritage in Formula One, but IndyCar much less popular in the UK. How big is it in the US? Give us an idea.
Well, IndyCar is part of our history. The first race at Indy was in 1911. We've had a race there that everyone has gathered around the television and watched, or the radio, for since the beginning, and it's been something where people have been building cars to race at Indy throughout our history. And beyond that, it is motorsport, and we love motorsport. So I think it's going to be a lot of excitement.
Yeah, I'm sure it will, Greg. Thank you so much for telling us about that. Motorsport Programs Manager of the Summit Point Motorsports Park, Greg Haas there. What a summer to be in Washington, D.C., Laurie, with the 250 celebrations, with the World Cup being held in America, and with this event now coming up in August. Will you be watching?
Of course. I love fast cars and racing. I'm from Florida, so we have NASCAR, Formula One.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. I didn't have you down as a motorsport fan.
Oh yes, love it.
Amazing. Yeah. Niall?
Well, I think it's a great event actually, and I'm sure there'll be huge crowds turning out to see this. You know, Trump is in many respects a very revolutionary president, you know, I think what he is doing here is bringing some real, perhaps, glamour to Washington in terms of the sporting world. The World Cup actually has been a tremendous success.
Oh, absolutely.
I've been to 2 games already, and a great credit to the United States. And the US, is unbeatable, I think, in terms of holding sporting events. And I'm sure the Washington, D.C. Race will be absolutely spectacular.
And what I love about it, guys, Benjamin, what I love about this city and this president in particular is the ambition to put on these events and the people that he has working with him. I mean, that UFC fight in the grounds of the White House, it was just spectacular. I can't stand UFC. I couldn't watch it that night. There's no way I could have even watched it on a screen, never mind in the splash zone at the actual ring. But actually, I love the fact that he's like, we're going to do this, we're going to make it happen, we're going to put as much resources behind it, and we're just going to provide a spectacle. And this is going to be another one right in the centre of DC, Ben.
I mean, I know, I've seen lots of people saying the US is doing a very good job at hosting the football or the soccer World Cup. But when it comes to these sort of personal pet projects, I'm afraid I can't help but think, doesn't the president of the US, the leader of the free world, have better things to spend his time on than, spectacles in his back garden?
I don't think he's actually individually organising it himself with a clipboard and a pen. To be fair, I think he just employs really good people to pull these massively ambitious events together, I think. It's kind of my impression. And I don't think he's particularly, David, I don't think he's particularly a motorsport fan, but I think he knows this is good for the people. He somehow manages to connect with the American people through sports that they love, like IndyCar and UFC, in a way that, I'm so sorry, but Biden just never managed to make that sort of just a connection with the American people.
Well, I'm no expert of motorsport or the American people. As a Brit who likes kind of understated events, I mean, fair enough, if President Trump wants to celebrate what America loves, that's great. I think from a British context, it's not much you can really set a rally around number 10 without going through 50 different protests and other blockages.
What could we have? May Day, the ribbon thing that we do on May Day? We could have that outside Downing Street.
Morris dancing, Benjamin. I think you'll find that's Morris dancing.
Or a St George's Day rally.
A key part of our British heritage, Niall. But do you take my point about the fact that they've just got this vision to just do these really public-friendly mass events where tickets will be possibly free even to this one?
Yeah, this is the world superpower. And you have a leader of the free world who really believes in American greatness. And we're seeing that reflected in so many ways, including in sporting events. And I think the vast majority of the American people, enjoy these kinds of spectacles. Sort of thing, of course, that Keir Starmer could never even, dream of actually. No. And the contrast between a figure like Donald Trump and weak-kneed Keir Starmer, it's a vast gulf, isn't it, in terms of overall vision, talent.
Go on, Laurie. I could hear you sighing beside me.
Can you imagine Keir Starmer doing something like this? No, you can't.
No, go on, Laurie.
Donald Trump playing, sorry, I don't want to mess this up because it's good. Donald Trump, destined to be and born to be a first lady, but cosplaying a president.
Destined to be a first lady and cosplaying a president. Is that what you think?
All these vanity projects at the taxpayers' expense. Not that first ladies wasted money. I've never seen anything like this. President just spending taxpayer dollars like it's a tree with money growing up.
Actually, it's privately funded.
But is it privately funded?
Yeah, this is not.
None of it has been privately funded after everyone sees what the devil is in the details.
It's privately funded.
That's why every single lawsuit
it doesn't cost the taxpayer anything.
Sure.
It brings in a huge amount of revenue, actually.
And isn't it the fact that it's your 250th year, Laurie?
Didn't get any revenue. They actually lost a lot of money. It was a very, very bad deal for them, actually.
But for your 250th, isn't it important to bring people together in these heartwarming events?
I was there. I was doing your program, actually, from a rooftop in Georgetown.
So it was worth it.
So I was celebrated. I was there. It's part of it.
Right, more to come in the next hour. Trade unions and energy bosses are begging the government to back North Sea oil. Is it time for Labour to drill, baby drill? See you in a minute.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning. It's time for your GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. And now it is going to be another mostly sunny and hot day for many of us, even though at the moment there's actually quite a bit of cloud around. That cloud has come in from the east overnight, but it is generally going to break up and burn away as we go through this morning. Just some lingering low cloud towards some North Sea coastal parts. Lots of sunshine then by the afternoon, and in that sunshine, well, it's going to feel pretty hot indeed. Temperatures generally ranging from highs in the very high 20s, possibly low 30s towards the south, to the high teens, low 20s towards the north. There is still a bit of a breeze, particularly towards some coastal parts. That will take the edge off the heat a little bit. Into the evening, and there's not a huge amount of change, to be honest. There's some low clouds still around those eastern coastal parts of Scotland. Across central and western areas, however, it's a bright, fine end to the day, similar across much of Northern Ireland. Again, still some cloud around those North Sea coastal parts of England, and that cloud is again going to start to push its way a bit further inland through the end of the evening and overnight. Most places, though, sticking with the largely clear skies for a little while yet. But yes, similar to last night, really, that cloud in the east is going to become more widespread, and there's also the potential for a bit of cloud to come into some southwestern parts, Devon and Cornwall, likely to see some cloud at times overnight, but it's going to stay dry. Temperatures holding up for most, so low to mid-teens, high teens in a fair few places, especially towards the south, so feeling pretty warm indeed, still quite uncomfortable for sleeping. Again, we're going to see most of that cloud that pushes in overnight burning away through tomorrow morning, still just lingering towards those eastern coastal parts for some. Otherwise, a bit of cloud here and there, could be quite high-level clouds, so maybe just turning the sunshine a bit hazy at times, but generally it's looking fine, sunny, and with that, temperatures similar to today, so a good chance of getting into the low 30s. See you later.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From cold mornings
to warm family brunches.
From football to tennis in the car.
In the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there. With the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again. To start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Very good evening, good morning, live from Washington, D.C. This is Bev Turner on GB News with the story shaping Great Britain and the United States of America.
The circumstances of her death are extremely distressing. Counter-terrorism policing have now taken the lead in the investigation.
Are now in charge of the investigation over the alleged murder of Anne Widdecombe, raising widespread concerns over the safety of politicians in Britain.
I said, if you don't change your energy thing and get away from windmills and go back to oil and gas, and you have something that's no other country has. Very few countries have anything like it, the North Sea.
You're the first to hear this on GB News. Late Show Live viewers and listeners, energy leaders are calling for MPs to drill, baby drill, and open up the North Sea to meet climate obligations, but also to boost jobs, communities and the economy. We're going to be debating that in just a minute.
So we're doing another very major attack tonight. They want to make a deal. They came back. We made a deal 2 days ago, and they want to make a deal. They've been negotiating for 47 years, but nobody's ever hit them militarily. We're hitting them very hard.
That was President Trump just a few hours ago, pledging another night of fresh strikes on Iran. The White House reinstated their blockade in the Strait of Hormuz earlier today. That is not getting sorted out any time soon. I'm Bev Turner, and this is The Late Show Live. through all these topics in DC with me tonight. I've got former Obama advisor Laurie Watkins and former aide to Margaret Thatcher, Niall Gardner, and in London, journalist and broadcaster Benjamin Butterworth and Conservative councillor David Moore. Thank you all for joining us this evening. Now, moving on to that news story that's just breaking for Late Show viewers. Labour MPs are coming under fresh pressure to rethink their stance on North Sea oil and gas, with an unusual alliance of energy bosses, trade unions and industry leaders warning that backing domestic production is about far more than fossil fuels. They're saying it is a signal that the country remains committed to producing, building and manufacturing. In an open letter to be delivered to Parliament, they are arguing that continuing to produce oil and gas in the North Sea protects British jobs, it strengthens energy security, and is actually better for the climate than relying on imported fuel with higher emissions. They're saying that the UK still imports more than 40% of its energy needs and warn that abandoning domestic production would leave Britain more dependent on volatile foreign suppliers. So are we about to see support from the political left to drill, baby, drill?
Although our readers want to do their best by the environment, they want to recycle, they believe that climate change exists, they're worried about the execution of this. They're worried that actually some of these measures are making the poor poorer and indeed colder. Is that a fair argument to mount?
Well, you asked me first if I agreed with his statement, and I don't.
Yeah.
The facts are wrong.
Okay.
And then it got a bit long-winded and complicated. But do you know what? I'm going to leave because I'm not having this discussion. I'm sorry.
What?
I'm just not.
You're joking. No. Why?
Because I'm just offended.
Why are you offended?
I can't engage in a positive conversation about net zero and stuff like that.
Sorry, we should have explained who that was before that clip, but that is Dale Vince. Now, he is a man who's worth more than 100 million quid in the UK. He's a devoted left-wing advocate for politics. We want to use those old-fashioned terms. He would see himself in those terms. He's a hardcore socialist that's worth a ton of money, and he was being interviewed by Camilla Tominey there on her podcast for the Daily Telegraph. And he walked out when she suggested that maybe some of the net zero policies from which he's made a fortune might be making people poorer and colder. And that, Niall, says it all. Yes. That he couldn't even stay there and have a debate about the rights and wrongs of this insanity.
Yeah, that Dale Vince fellow who can't even dress properly, I might say. Why isn't he wearing a suit?
Outrageous.
He's a complete, utter, pathetic snowflake, right? So he's running away from Camilla Tominey, a friend of mine.
Yeah.
And he can't even face basic questions. And one of the most pathetic performances I've ever seen on television. And it says a lot about these net zero zealots. They can't actually defend their own crazy, mad policies that make the British people far poorer. And that's a prime example, actually. And not only a snowflake, but somebody who doesn't even have the intelligence to defend his own views. Utterly pathetic.
It is pathetic. I guess you weren't familiar with that guy, Laurie. I mean, the first thing you said is, what is that guy wearing? If you were listening on the radio, he's basically wearing a running vest. And he's a serious...
I thought he just came off of the street from a jog, and I didn't know what it was about. But then once I hear that it's this man and he's worth, X amount of... I've seen people in third world countries that have put more effort into their appearance than that gentleman that I just saw on television, so I will just leave it there. But
he's been one of the key architects of the net zero agenda, green energy.
In my opinion, when you leave a conversation or you just get up and leave, and you don't sit there and at least spar, fight, whatever, try to defend yourself, you're usually guilty of something.
Yeah. Let's go to Ed Gemmell from the Climate Party down the line now this evening. Ed, you are a man who doesn't mind getting in the bear pit. You come on GB News regularly. You set up the Climate Party, Ed, because you believe that the green agenda is worth pursuing and investing in and making money out of. How do you feel when you see Dale Vince, who's made a fortune out of net zero but cannot even have the slightest bit of difficult conversation with Camilla?
I don't think that was a great performance, but having said that, Dale and I share quite a lot of our beliefs. Having said that as well, I am not left-wing, and I don't believe that this argument needs to be a left-right discussion at all. There is a vast amount of money to be made from net zero. The London Stock Exchange Group has said that in the past 10 years, the net zero economy worldwide has been growing at 15% a year. And the only thing that's growing as a sector faster than that is AI and deep tech at 17% a year. And there's a bubble coming there it's going to burst. Whereas there isn't a bubble coming in the growth of net zero and sustainable technologies. So I don't quite know why Dale walked out, because he could have come out with the facts.
But if you know him fairly well, Ed, as you say, you're very much aligned on the idea that we need to not be tapping into fossil fuels, that we need to be investing in green energy for the sake of the future, but you would also say for the sake of the now and the economy, and I've heard your frustration with the UK that we don't do enough of that.
Absolutely.
What do you think was going through Dale Vince's head? Because he doesn't often do many interviews. He obviously agreed to do that interview and then didn't have the testicular fortitude to have even the slightest bit of back and forth. Why?
Okay, I haven't seen the whole interview, so I don't know what went on before. I am surprised that he went out there.
You've seen it, that's it.
Then I don't understand it, because there are vast stats supporting the fact that the reindustrialisation of the UK has been supported by net zero. The Confederation of British Industry is showing that net zero industries in the UK are growing at 10% a year. And when GDP is at 0.7% in the UK, it's growing more than 10 times faster than the normal economy. And what we should be doing is doubling down, and Britain should be getting to the front. And it's not green all the time, it's clean. It's about having clean steel, clean cement, clean energy, putting in tidal power. We should be doing it in the UK, doing it harder, faster and first, and then selling to the rest of the world. And we would see a massive jump in our GDP.
So how do you feel then about these Labour MPs being told in this open letter that the UK should be bringing back North Sea oil and gas drilling to help the UK? Does your heart sink, Ed, when you hear that?
I mean, if I use a phrase, something fairly controversial to say, to compare it to, it's like saying to a heroin addict, let's keep going on it, instead of going over to something else like going out for a run every day and trying to get our high in a better way. I mean, that's effectively what we're saying. Let's double down on the stuff that's running out, that's getting more expensive, and that eventually we're going to have to give up, rather than double down on tidal energy, wind power, geothermal, and all the other things Britain should be doing to get our energy cleaned up, not greened up, it's clean. It's about the clean industrial revolution. And Britain should, was at the front of the industrial revolution. We should be at the front of the clean industrial revolution, which is happening now, whether we like it or not. And the idea of going back into things that are gradually declining and failing, and costs are going up in the North Sea, is the wrong thing to do. And no one would be drilling in the North Sea if we didn't give massive tax rebates for the investment that all these companies put in when they get started, for the decommissioning when they clean it up at the end, and while they're drilling. Without those tax rebates, it would be costing them twice as much to do it, and it wouldn't be worth doing in the first place. It is the wrong thing to do. And just one other issue on it is, if we treated our fossil fuel industry in the UK in the same way we do our nuclear industry, so if we put onto it the same controls in terms of waste, the same controls in terms of safety, so that we didn't have methane flaring, we collected methane all the time during production, so that we collected all the carbon that was being burnt, so that we had to store it underground, we would again see a massive increase in cost in the use of fossil fuels compared to the nuclear industry, and people wouldn't be using it at all.
I want to bring my panel in on this, Ed, because I can hear how frustrated you are by this slight turn of direction, which is what we're sensing here, is the idea that maybe the British public are sick of paying 4 times as many as they pay here in America for our electricity and our gas, to heat our homes, to cook our foods. We're sick of it. And if the solution is to start drilling again, which seems like the quickest solution, I think the British public are relatively starting.
It will make no difference to our costs, though, because what will happen, and the people talk about it being sold, sold at the market value. Well, all they're saying is that Shell and BP or whoever else it would be drilling for it isn't going to come and sell it at a loss in the UK and make less money on it. So unless the British government wants to go out and say, right, you have to sell it in the UK, and you've got to sell it at a lower price than on the international market, only in that case then would it actually be cheaper for people in the UK. And that would require the government doing it.
Niall, is it the kind of thing the government should do?
You know, I think that what we need in the UK are free market policies, pro-energy policies, a rejection of the far left, net zero zealotry, which is making the British people significantly poorer. And there's a good reason why. There's a good reason why in the United States people pay far less for their energy, because you do have free market policies in place, led by U.S. administration, that is not tied to an extremist, left-wing, so-called green ideology, net zero is without a doubt, I think it's been one of the most disastrous, ideas that has been brought to European, countries in the last few decades, and the United States is a clear example of a nation that is based upon energy independence, that is not reliant upon other countries for their energy, and it's based upon a view that free markets work best without government control and intervention.
Ed, come in on that, because it's so fascinating for me, because there's a lot of things that you and Niall would agree on, but there's also these massive points of difference. Just respond to what you've just heard.
I think the first thing about it is that it's the suggestion that comes out so often from people. And by the way, this is not a left-right thing. I think it's utterly ridiculous. But anyway, so the first thing is that in fact, net zero has re-industrialised the UK. In the period, in the 50 years going up to about 2008, when the Climate Change Act came in, our manufacturing as a percentage of GDP of our economy, it went down by about 30%. And since we brought in the Climate Change Act, it's gone down by under 1%, at the same time as the net zero sector is growing at 10% a year. It is rubbish to say that net zero policies have caused deindustrialization or been costing us as an economy money. They've been making us money and giving us more industry. And if we did it harder, faster, better, put Britain at the front, stop buying the stuff from China, let's make the new stuff here, let's make it British, let's innovate it in Oxford and Cambridge, let's produce it in the UK, let's have the next generation solar panels and tidal power and wind and everything else done here. It's a reindustrialisation opportunity of the millennia.
David, why therefore did the Conservatives drag their feet on this for 14 years? Because Ed does make it sound like we've missed an opportunity here to be ahead of the game.
I think the Conservatives have made it very clear that net zero is frankly a Ponzi scheme that needs scrapping. Yes, I disagree that in the past we should have never made net zero into law under Theresa May. I think that was an absolute mistake. But let me be absolutely clear. You cannot manufacture or reindustrialise this country with the highest energy costs ever because of net zero. We need to take the ideology out of energy policy and we need to start following energy realism. That means drilling. That means actually making solar here, because Ed is right, we actually import it all from China on oil tankers, and he's right on that point. We don't manufacture major solar panels. We also have barely any nuclear power stations. The French have built loads and they're reaping the rewards of that. Meanwhile, Quangos are blocking the expansion of major nuclear reactors in this country. So I think net zero needs scrapping. We need to have energy realism, embracing nuclear, embracing oil, embracing solar, and stop relying on foreign powers, whether it be the Russian gas, which has put Germany into its predicament today because it shut all of its nuclear power down, all the way to stop manufacturing from China, which are using slave labour, and like I say, using oil tankers 8,000 miles away. And I think net zero is the reason why we have deindustrialised and decided to import everything. And we need to go back to reindustrialising, having cheap energy, and allowing people to prosper through that.
I mean,
Benjamin,
a totally
what do you make of this
view.
debate? Sorry, Ed, go on.
Yeah, sorry, completely
Ed, come
uninformed
back
view.
and then I'll hear from Ben.
Sure. What we should be doing in the UK. I mean, what we stopped doing, if we go back a number of governments now, however many prime ministers, I've lost count, but if we go back, look, we stopped doing onshore wind for a huge period of time, which is completely ridiculous. There is an argument about us stopping doing nuclear. But the other thing is, why aren't we doing tidal power? You know, this is a country surrounded by waves and by tides. We could be doing 20 gigawatts of tidal power in the UK. And for those of us on this call, we're using in the UK at the moment about 25 gigawatts of electricity at the moment. 20 gigawatts could come from tidal power if we doubled down and did it. And tidal power is completely predictable. It has base load. It's super British. And if we then went into a massive export overdrive, we'd be putting literally tens, if not hundreds of billions on. And the net zero economy is growing so big worldwide, it's going to be 12 to 14 trillion US dollars by 2030. If Britain went for it, invested and innovated, and was the only country that got there by 2030, but through investment, not degrowth, we could be grabbing 5 or 10% of that pie. It could be £20 billion a week on the British economy. Why do you want to hold us back? Why can't you let the free market get at it? Why can't you let us make money?
Benjamin, you might know the answer to this question. I don't know how detailed your knowledge is of tidal power. But why don't we channel tidal power, Ed? Do you know the answer to this question, Ben? Like genuinely in a practical way? Because the tide waits for no man, as they say. It's often struck me standing on a beach that we have all that energy out there, that we aren't using it. What are the objections to that?
I don't have a clue, but I do know that I don't just want to...
you might not.
I don't just want to make tidal power. I also want to make Ed Prime Minister, I think, after that speech. I wish that Ed Miliband could have the passion and the communication skills that are put there. Because I often think with this, to be honest, I'll be honest, I would probably not cut off our drilling in the North Sea so dramatically, but what I would do is use the money that's producing in the short term to fund transitioning to green energy like tidal power, wind power, solar power, because I think the point that I always think about this is the one that Ed has made fantastically, which is that this is an economic opportunity that we failed to grasp. In 2007-8, when we had the global economic crash and government spending started to be cut a lot, China made the opposite decision. It decided to invest heavily in renewable technologies, sustainable technologies, solar panels being a prime example. And now 70% of the world's sustainable technologies comes from China. You're seeing not only the fact it makes up about a fifth of their GDP, it's been a huge part of their growth in the last decade or so, but also many African countries are being powered, and many of the poorest countries as well, Pakistan is another example, are totally reliant on Chinese sustainable technology, on solar panels. So it's giving them both economic growth and political power. And I really think that we should rebrand it from net zero, which is a bit more controversial, to energy security. It's a matter of security that we produce these things. And I think that's probably a more compelling argument beyond environmentalists.
Yeah, net zero was always terrible marketing because it never really made any sense and it didn't hold up to scrutiny. But Ed, just answer that question. Why don't we use our tidal power in the UK? What are the objections on probably, I imagine, a local level?
To be honest, it's not really on a local level. The objection you hear again and again and again is it's too expensive. But I'm sorry, all of these technologies were too expensive when you started doing them. Solar was, wind was, I'm sure drilling for oil was when you first did it, but it's by doing it, innovating and scaling it that you make it work. And that's what we should be doing in the UK. But not only in tidal, I mean, you know, making cement, decarbonised steel, cross-laminated timbers, which you can now build 12, 14-storey buildings with. Britain should be doubling down on it. And just across my desk in the last couple of weeks, I've had 2 innovative companies coming through with dealing with nuclear waste. So they're taking the nuclear waste and denuclearising it and turning it into something useful. I don't know if their ideas are scalable. I'm not technical enough to know, but we should be doubling down on this. And in Britain, there is a very, very clear opportunity. And we have innovation, Oxford, Cambridge, and everywhere else. We've got the city to pay for it. They are still financing, and we are still financing so much of what is going on in the world, particularly in clean technology. We have the opportunity in Britain, and it could put 20 billion a week onto our economy, growing it in a short number of years by 25%. What is not to like? Why are people holding it back?
Okay, Ed. Brilliant defence, as Benjamin says. Leader of the Climate Party there, Ed Gemmell. A very unusual right-wing, not left-wing, advocate for clean energy. So much of this is in the language, isn't it, Niall? When he's saying there, we need to talk about energy security. I think he's right about that, but I'm still not sure if it's just.
Yeah, I don't think it's just a matter of language. It's about ideology, really.
Yeah.
And they're talking about big state intervention, driven by, at the end of the day, yes, net zero policies, which actually make countries poorer, not richer, which is why the United States is vastly superior in terms of energy security compared to the UK and the whole of Europe, frankly. So there's a reason for that.
William says, we tried tidal power in Scotland. I think it was too expensive and it was super bad for marine life. Thank you, William. And who else has said here? Beverly has said, drill and frack, get our bills down. Morning, Beverly. And Clev says, did Vince need to get to the gym? That was Dale Vince, who stormed out of that interview with Camilla from the Telegraph, and it proves you can be very rich. It proves you can be very rich, move on, or whatever.
Money can't buy class.
Money can't buy class. No, it can't. It genuinely can't. It's extraordinary.
Well said.
I was genuinely wanted to hear what he had to say. This is the thing you don't hear from Dale Vince, and he is a key architect of this ambition for net zero. I was keen to watch that interview, and
he sounds
poor
quite
Camilla
thick,
Tominey.
actually. So, that's the truth.
He
can come on the show and debate us about that.
Yeah, you're welcome anytime, Dale Vince. Right, let me know your thoughts this evening. GBNews.com/your say. Still to come this evening on The Late Show Live.
The circumstances of her death are extremely distressing. Counter-terrorism policing have now taken the lead in the investigation.
It's a story that is, of course, still dominating all the headlines in the UK. The killing of Anne Widdecombe. It's now being treated as a terror case. Let's discuss in a minute, only on The Late Show Live. So the investigation into the death of former MP Anne Widdecombe has taken a dramatic turn tonight after counter-terrorism policing took over the case following what officers describe as new information and evidence. Police had initially said they had no reason to believe her death was politically motivated, but subsequently a 28-year-old man already under arrest on suspicion of murder has now been re-arrested under terrorism legislation. Investigators are stressing they have not yet established a motive and are urging the public not to speculate. The case has inevitably reignited concerns over the safety of Britain's politicians. The murders of Joe Cox and Sir David Amess expose the growing risks faced by public figures, prompting fresh calls for tougher security measures.
I recognise the particular concern that the Reform Party will feel today, and of course Nigel Farage, the party's leader. I'm happy to offer a meeting for Mr Farage with the chair of RAVIC, the independent body within the Home Office that manages the security of those in public life. And I will also be looking at what security guidance can be provided to former members of Parliament, which I hope to work with you on, Mr Speaker, as well as those who serve a party outside of this place.
Well, today tributes were made to the Reform immigration spokesperson from all sides of the House.
I also think that the Scottish whisky industry has lost a very discerning customer. And maybe there could be a limited edition, Widder's Whisky, where the tasting notes may reflect unique, unforgettable flavours, a fiery, spicy series of tones, but a blend to be treasured to eternity. May she rest in peace.
So let's just discuss what this might mean, therefore, for politicians and their safety. Benjamin, do you think we need to be more aware now of the risks that are posed to particularly right-wing politicians? It seems that they are in the crosshairs of crazy people who believe what they read online, who believe what they hear. And I'm not making an explicit connection in this case, but we've heard it from senior politicians, including Keir Starmer, our soon-to-be former Prime Minister. Whenever there has been anything which is considered to be the right in the UK, coming out and saying this is not acceptable. I'm thinking about Southport and whipping up potentially hate against anybody that appears to be in favour of secure borders, low tax and a smaller government. What do we do to row back on this awful division?
Well, I shouldn't think that Reform politicians would want to be in the same bracket as the dangerous rioters. I'd like to think they rather more worthy than the people that went out and smashed up businesses. But there's obviously been a situation for some years now, 10 years since Joe Cox was murdered, almost exactly 10 years, in fact, this Anne Widdecombe incident has cropped up. Isn't that telling? And things have only got more toxic and more dangerous. And I think social media and the way it is able to warp reality is clearly spinning some dangerous and unstable people into thinking that this kind of violence and extremism is acceptable. And the telling thing is, I mean, Sir David Amess, for example, both of them, Joe Cox and Sir David Amess, they were not household names. I was not familiar with David Amess's politics beyond the basics, for example. I doubt the average person had ever heard of either of them. And so this is the real telling part, that it's not even high-profile frontline politicians that face threats which you can anticipate in security. It's any of them. A friend of mine, when he was elected as a Labour MP at the last election, not long into that, and he's still, you know, no one would know who he was if I were to share his name. And he received an email from someone saying that they were going to behead him. And they were in a car not far from his constituency office where he was at the time. He wasn't famous. He hadn't even had a chance to make any arguments yet as a parliamentarian. But people seem to think it's acceptable to send these kind of threats. Dame Penny Mordaunt was on a radio station the other day, and she said that there hasn't been a single day in the last 4 years where there hasn't been at least one court case because of threats to her safety. And she's been out of Parliament for 2 years. I don't know how we got into a state like this, but it's extremely dangerous, and I think that all people in public life, not just in Parliament, need more security.
Laurie, what do you make of this? When Benjamin says, I don't know how we got into a state like this, I don't think it is necessarily just social media that is to blame. I think it's too easy to just point for social media. I think we've almost moved to a place as well where the idea of personal responsibility is just dissolved, and that people feeling like they have a right to go and hurt somebody else because they disagree with them, rather than saying, just to quote the late Anne Widdecombe, that being offended is a hazard of being a human. And somehow we've got to remind people that being offended or not liking someone's politics is not a reason to hunt them down. We don't know the logic in this case, we don't know the reasoning, and it is an active case, and I'm not speculating, but we've seen it potentially in the case of Charlie Kirk as well, somebody killed for his political opinions. Laurie?
Well, you all know that I am not a politician, even though I've worked for them for decades of my career, but the week before last, let's just start there, I wrote an op-ed in The Hill called I'm a Democratic Strategist and I Can't Stay Silent about Graham Plattner. He was a Democratic candidate and nominee for the U.S. Senate in the state of Maine. He had a very colorful past, let's just say that. And I was speaking in my article about character and how the bar, if it is low, are people still willing to cross over that and say, I'm willing to vote for somebody no matter about their past because I want to beat this person? And also the vitriol and potential violence that comes with that.
And just to clarify, because I don't want to interrupt because I want to hear the end of what you have to say, but for our British viewers, he was accused of sexual crimes, sexual impropriety and assault, etc., and he's had to stand aside.
Alcoholism and having a Nazi tattoo on his chest for years, more than a decade, in fact.
And he is a Democrat.
And he was a Democrat running against Susan Collins. So I spoke out against him as a Democrat. And I was out of the country on work travel when this article, my op-ed, came out. And like within hours, there was an 8-hour time difference. Within hours, people started letting me know that the communication, I will not say his name here, the communications director for the AFL-CIO, which is a huge labor union here in the United States of Maine, he put out on his social media that I should be the first one to be lined up against the wall and to be executed along with any other Democrat who doesn't support this Democrat. Because I'm a Democrat and I don't support him, I deserve to be executed, is essentially what this guy said. It reached the point where Susan Collins, the U.S. Senator, was asked about it by a reporter, and she knew about it, and she responded when asked what she thought about him making this threat against me, and she said it was absolutely despicable. I bring this up because I wrote something using my freedom of speech, not in support of a Democratic candidate, but as a Democratic strategist, I was called a stooge, a fake, like I'm a plant, I must be being paid by the right. You can only imagine, right? But I bring this up because this has got to stop. This isn't just about politicians. People are weaving it into everyday life. And what I see is, yes, personal responsibility, Bev, but it's also people need to have better emotional regulation. Because you don't agree with something that somebody says, you don't pop off and go on social media and make threats against people that could be potentially harmful or violent or cause somebody to lose their life. These are very serious things and very serious times that we are living in. So please understand that if you do something like that, there will be consequences.
Niall, just respond to what you think.
Yeah, I think the threats that he made against Laurie are absolutely disgusting and evil. And, we've got to put a stop to this, really. The reality is that, there are those out there who are filled with hate and venom. A lot of them hide behind anonymous, accounts on social media. I will say this, that I do think that the overwhelming majority of the threats that we see today are against politicians on the right, against conservative politicians. They're largely coming from the left. The US president has faced a series of assassination attempts. And the killing of Charlie Kirk, I think, is a huge symbol of this sort of far left-wing hatred, intolerance. And it is very sad to see this on both sides of the Atlantic, actually, and it is an absolute cancer in society. Frankly, this hatred and venom instead of tolerance for opposing viewpoints and an orderly, rational debate between human beings.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, we've got to move on, I'm afraid. We're just going to take a quick break for the weather and be right back in just a moment.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning. It's time for your GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. And now it is going to be another mostly sunny and hot day for many of us, even though at the moment there's actually quite a bit of cloud around. That cloud has come in from the east overnight, but it is generally going to break up and burn away as we go through this morning. Just some lingering low cloud towards some North Sea coastal parts. Lots of sunshine then by the afternoon, and in that sunshine, well, it's going to feel pretty hot indeed. Temperatures generally ranging from highs in the very high 20s, possibly low 30s towards the south, to the high teens, low 20s towards the north. There is still a bit of a breeze, particularly towards some coastal parts. That will take the edge off the heat a little bit. Into the evening, and there's not a huge amount of change, to be honest. There's some low clouds still around those eastern coastal parts of Scotland. Across central and western areas, however, it's a bright, fine end to the day, similar across much of Northern Ireland. Again, still some cloud around those North Sea coastal parts of England, and that cloud is again going to start to push its way a bit further inland through the end of the evening and overnight. Most places, though, sticking with the largely clear skies for a little while yet. But yes, similar to last night, really, that cloud in the east is going to become more widespread, and there's also the potential for a bit of cloud to come into some southwestern parts, Devon and Cornwall, likely to see some cloud at times overnight, but it's going to stay dry. Temperatures holding up for most, so low to mid-teens, high teens in a fair few places, especially towards the south, so feeling pretty warm indeed, still quite uncomfortable for sleeping. Again, we're going to see most of that cloud that pushes in overnight burning away through tomorrow morning, still just lingering towards those eastern coastal parts for some. Otherwise, a bit of cloud here and there, could be quite high-level clouds, so maybe just turning the sunshine a bit hazy at times, but generally it's looking fine, sunny, and with that, temperatures similar to today, so a good chance of getting into the low 30s. See you later.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
From cold mornings
to warm family brunches,
from football to tennis in the car,
in the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again.
To start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Welcome back. So President Trump says that the United States is immediately restarting its blockade of Iranian ports and will begin charging ships a 20% fee to pass through the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most important shipping lanes, of course. The president says that America will become the guardian of the vital waterway, although it's still unclear exactly how the charge would be enforced. Iran has hit back, insisting it has always been the guardian of the strait and warning it will not tolerate American interference. The announcement comes as US forces claim they carried out fresh strikes overnight on Iranian military targets, raising fears that the confrontation between Washington and Tehran is entering a dangerous new phase. Joining me now to discuss this is Republican commentator Toria Brooke. Tori, thank you so much for joining us. Does America have a right to claim ownership of the strait in this way and to charge people to use it?
Well, as I mentioned the last time I was on GB, Kuwait once reproached us during the Reagan administration in 1987 to provide protection for their passage through the strait because Iran was attacking them. So, Trump famously said during an interview with the great Rush Limbaugh that if you mess around with us or do something bad to us, we will do to you things that have never been done before. I think America is done helping other nations for free. And after all, we were in Vietnam for about 19 years. We've only been in Iran for about 4 months. So President Trump called for a 20% charge for all cargo shipped through the strait because the United States has been providing protection for multiple nations to have safe passage through the strait. It shouldn't be assumed that it's our responsibility to provide this protection for free. President Trump explained that the U.S. would be reimbursed by 20% of the value of the cargo to help cover any and all costs necessary to do the job of providing safety and security. Additionally, the U.S. blockade of Iranian ports will resume Tuesday at 4 p.m. A fifth of the world's oil and gas passed through the strait before Iran and shut it down at the start of the war, driving up global prices of energy, fertilizer, and other goods. But what most people don't realize is that Americans actually were utilizing some of Iran's fertilizer. So, for example, American farmers have utilized fertilizer from Russia, Ukraine, and Iran. The conflict is certainly affecting those nations' sales aside from Iran. It's actually in the best interest of Iran and the neighboring countries to buck up and settle a deal with the United States. Regarding oil, President Trump already found a solution and disrupted OPEC with the departure of the United Arab Emirates. The Middle East no longer has the monopoly that it once had. And in fact, the U.S. is now the world's largest exporter of oil. Other countries are coming to have a seat at our table. Ultimately, I think that President Trump's making art of the deal moves as he always had. And as far as the question of whether the American gas prices are going to go down, President Trump's team just announced that we launched the Freedom Fuel Network of 25 gas stations that are in and around the Philadelphia area. President Trump is also launching an investigation into some of these gas companies that are price gouging to try to raise gas prices beyond what the average American can spend.
It's difficult to know, Toria, though, where he goes next. This is still not landing well with the American public, this war. If I can bring my panel in on this and widen this debate a little bit. because I really didn't want to still be talking about this a couple of months after the start of the war in Iran. We hoped it would be wrapped up, but we're now realising that was an unrealistic ambition. Why? Because you have an extreme theocratic regime who wish death to the West, and you cannot bomb away an ideology, can you, Toria? That's the problem now that President Trump is facing. I don't know what the solution is. Do you?
You know, we got to start somewhere. I think President Trump is one of the first in office to actually try to handle this matter. And as much as people are complaining about it, I think that we will see positive ramifications of this in years to come. So I'm looking forward to seeing the overall rippling and the domino effect of how we see this affect trade and overall national security and international security.
Laurie, let me bring you in on this then. Toria is right in that if this goes well and if Iran can be demilitarized, denuclearized, we all sleep more safely in our beds at night. And if they can become less of a sort of powerful force within the Middle East, we could be looking at a regional peace settlement that we've all hoped will come in our lifetime. Where do you sit on this now, Laurie?
Those are all wonderful fantasies to have, but they're very difficult for very specific reasons. And every time that I hear a person use, I'm not saying Toria necessarily did, but anyone try to defend the reason and rationale for why President Trump engaged with Netanyahu in this war against Iran, the answer is, well, he's the first person to do it and he has strength or he has guts or whatever it is that he's decided he's, the person to do this, the first one in 47 years. And I push back to say, like I started this, there are very specific reasons why this is very difficult. Do I think that it's crazy for Americans or anyone around the world to want to know how long is this going to last? How long am I going to be affected by this economically? How do you plan to denuclearize without putting U.S. troops on the ground, boots on the ground in the region or in the area itself, or Karg Island specifically? How is that going to work out? Also, about sanctions, we just gave them a lot of money and they didn't adhere to the MOU. So what does that mean? Are we going to get that back? This is what all the experts who have been dealing in negotiations for decades upon decades, not real estate developers who don't know what they are doing. I will continue to say that. I want the experts in the room. I want the best that we have to be sitting there at the negotiating table. That's who I would hope that Donald Trump would send in for this, that they would understand that this takes time and no one is supposed to, by international law, control the Strait of Hormuz, not even the Iranians either. And in that MOU, we basically were giving up power to them to control it by giving them money and cash and saying that, you can blockade, you can go ahead and attack whichever vessel or country that you deem is not to your standards. That's not a deal. That's pieces of a negotiation that at any given whim by any side, whether it's the United States, Israel, or the Iranians, can decide, oh, today I don't want to play by the rules. That's what we're seeing here. So there is no deal. This is every single day there's new developments. So how can the economy, how can investors, how can people trust what's going on if there's so much uncertainty?
Toria, respond to that.
I'm actually really glad she expressed her opinions on this because, after all, as I've mentioned before, President Trump isn't going to announce all of his strategies, right? Because if the general public knows about it, then our adversaries do as well. I like the fact that she also mentioned Karg Island. Many of the intel analysts actually believe that we are protecting some of the resources that are at Karg Island against other nations, against Iran. Now, whether that's the case or not, I can't speak to that. But I do think there's a lot of things that aren't being reported for a reason. And as President Trump said, Israel actually reports to him. So it's not the other way around.
David, would you like to comment on this? Excuse me.
Absolutely. I think from a British perspective, our armed forces are in complete tatters. And when we saw the last set of engagements with Iran, our Navy wasn't ready. We currently have more admirals than ships. We saw complete inaction. We need strong resolve with our allies. This should be the Anglosphere uniting against a power that is threatening a strategic choke point. We need to build alternative pipelines, and we need to send a clear message to adversaries in light of the fact we're going to be banning the IRGC as a terrorist organisation, that Iran should not be meddling with the world's waterways and should not be holding ransom our fuel supply lines. So we need to have a strong response from Britain for once, not like last time when the French embarrassingly sent a task force when we had our ships still at harbour repairing. So we need to get together with America and the Anglosphere and send a strong message that we are allies, like we did in so many times before in history.
Absolutely, I think David is spot on there, and I think the weakness of America's allies has undermined the overall US-led effort against Iran. And the reality is that barely a single nation in Europe has done anything to support the vital military action against the Iranian regime. We are dealing with a savage and barbaric Islamist dictatorship that brutally murders its own people. And in my view, you can't negotiate with people like this. And this is why the president has resumed military action against Iran. We do need the entire free world united standing up to the Iranian regime. But the reality is that no one lifts a finger, frankly, outside of the United States, Israel and the Gulf states to fight the Iranian regime. And so the US and Israel have to carry the overwhelming burden for the military action. And I expect we're going to see many more months of military action against Iran, and the bombing will continue. And at the end of the day, when you're dealing with savage barbarism, you've got to defeat it. Frankly, you cannot give an inch to the mad mullahs of Tehran. Just in the same way as the British fought against the Mahdi army in the Sudan, 1899, a huge battle at Omdurman, which the British won overwhelmingly. You have to fight the Islamists and you've got to defeat them. This is what the United States is doing. But Europe, of course, is content to do absolutely nothing whatsoever. And this war will drag on for a very long time, not least because the rest of the free world cannot be bothered, it cannot be energized to lift a finger to fight against evil, while their own countries, of course, get invaded by large numbers of Islamist migrants. And so this is the reality we face when the United States, Israel, and our allies in the Gulf states do all the heavy lifting, while the rest of the free world does absolutely nothing at all.
Laurie, did you want to come in?
I just wanted to really encourage viewers over in the UK, but here in the United States as well, for those watching, that part of the reason or rationale that Donald Trump, after he had already waged the war against Iran, that part of that was because of the Iranian people, that within that 3-month time period of the first attack, that Iranians were getting killed in the streets for speaking up and protesting because the shopkeepers, the value of their currency was going down, and they felt like they were losing everything that they even had, and the government was working against them to ruin their lives. So he said, I'm going to help the Iranian people. I'm drawing this line. And that was part of the rationale he gave for starting this conflict. I want viewers to please be mindful and remember and ask your journalists to keep asking these questions. What about the Iranian people? Here in the United States, we're in a conflict with Iran, but when those bombs go down, it happens to our allies, our Arab partners in the region, it happens on the soil of Iran, in Israel, in Lebanon, etc. We're very lucky and grateful that it's not happening on our soil. But what about the Iranian people? They were not in any part of this MOU. They are not being talked about at all. And if that's really why we started this, was to help the oppressed Iranian people, what are we doing towards that effort? That's the question that I just keep asking myself and experts whenever I get the opportunity. So I hope you do as well.
Well, I think what we've heard, Benjamin, just briefly, I want to get everyone on this to some degree. What we've heard from Iranian experts in this studio is they've said the Iranian people are capable of overthrowing the remaining leaders and members of the IRGC, but they just need to be armed. They don't want America to do that for them. They want to do that for themselves. And that, to some extent, that part of the conversation has gone a bit quiet, Benjamin. I often think about the Iranian people. Our inbox tonight is people saying, but what about the Iranian people? They need helping, Ben.
I mean, you know, clearly there is a history of foreign interventions not empowering the people that live in a land to be able to rise up themselves, and it can often have the opposite effect. I suppose the question is that if you're one of those ordinary Iranians that had risked your life to try and overthrow this tyrannical regime, and you were told that hope was coming, and then suddenly a couple of months later, you know, a dollar sign solves it without the Iranian people's lives being changed, then what does that do to your mindset? What does that do to the sense that they can overthrow this regime? It's probably incredibly crushing for them. And so, you know, I really do think that they were overlooked in some of this agreement. The other fear is that because now Iran knows it can do this to the Strait of Hormuz, what are the chances that it will do it again in other conflicts? You know, I don't think they realised they had as much power as they can have. And so I fear that they've learned rather a lot of problematic things from the past couple of months.
David, do you think Andy Burnham getting into number 10 will change the British position on this conflict? Will we start getting more involved?
Certainly not. You'll see the same pathetic foreign policy from Labour. They want to just be like Europe, align with Europe, whether it be low growth of Europe, indecisiveness of Europe, relying on America to pay the defence bill for Europe instead of spending money on their own sovereign defence. You will see no change. It is the switching of the driver of that same old bus that is going to continually cut defence, increase the spending of welfare, and not invest in our allies and our defence infrastructure. Andy Burnham will not change that at all. He has no sense of experience with the armed forces. He has no prior record of standing up for the armed forces. Bev, I don't think there's going to be any change whatsoever.
Tori, a last word to you. What does President Trump need now from the rest of the world?
I think he needs cooperation and assistance, as he kind of mentioned. There was a truth he put out, I think it was about 2 months ago, saying, go get your oil. He's essentially telling these nations that we've been the ones that have allowed many other countries to get oil from the Middle East because we have provided protection. And, you know, today, President Trump said that we are effectively taking over the Strait. So to answer your question, you know, if you think that the Strait of Hormuz is going to be under control of Iran again, I don't think so. I think that he wants other nations to be able to go through peacefully. And that's why he's bringing up this 20% charge, because after all, we are providing that assistance. So I don't think he wants any more of our allies being attacked by Iran. And that's why this is so important to him.
Yeah, and is it going to reflect badly come the midterms, Toria, in November if this doesn't get sorted out soon?
Well, after all, like I said, he is the art of the deal president, so I'm not too concerned about that. I think that President Trump is doing things that haven't been done before, and I'm encouraged to see how this is all going to play out. But after all, the American people will decide, and I think things are about to turn around.
Yeah, okay. Toria, thank you so much, Republican commentator. Toria Brooke there joining us on the situation in Iran. We're going to have Janatan Sayer as well with us in the next hour to discuss that too. Let's take a very quick break now and we'll be back in just a few moments. Stay with us.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning. It's time for your GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. And now it is going to be another mostly sunny and hot day for many of us, even though at the moment there's actually quite a bit of cloud around. That cloud has come in from the east overnight, but it is generally going to break up and burn away as we go through this morning. Just some lingering low cloud towards some North Sea coastal parts. Lots of sunshine then by the afternoon, and in that sunshine, well, it's going to feel pretty hot indeed. Temperatures generally ranging from highs in the very high 20s, possibly low 30s towards the south to the high teens, low 20s towards the north. There is still a bit of a breeze, particularly towards some coastal parts. That will take the edge off the heat a little bit. into the evening, and there's not a huge amount of change, to be honest. There's some low clouds still around those eastern coastal parts of Scotland. Across central and western areas, however, it's a bright, fine end to the day, similar across much of Northern Ireland. Again, still some cloud around those North Sea coastal parts of England, and that cloud is again going to start to push its way a bit further inland through the end of the evening and overnight. Most places, though, sticking with the largely clear skies for a little while yet. But yes, similar to last night, really, that cloud in the east is going to become more widespread, and there's also the potential for a bit of cloud to come into some southwestern parts, Devon and Cornwall, likely to see some cloud at times overnight, but it's going to stay dry. Temperatures holding up for most, so low to mid-teens, high teens in a fair few places, especially towards the south, so feeling pretty warm indeed, still quite uncomfortable for sleeping. Again, we're going to see most of that cloud that pushes in overnight burning away through tomorrow morning, still just lingering towards those eastern coastal parts for some. Otherwise, a bit of cloud here and there, could be quite high-level clouds, so maybe just turning the sunshine a bit hazy at times, but generally it's looking fine, sunny, and with that, temperatures similar to today, so a good chance of getting into the low 30s. See you later.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
From cold mornings
to warm family brunches,
from football to tennis in the car,
in the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again to start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter?
So that's a very live question.
Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way. You will not want to miss it, trust me.
The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Live, just about, from Washington, D.C., this is Bev Turner on GB News with the stories shaping Britain and America tonight.
The circumstances of her death are extremely distressing. Counter-terrorism policing have now taken the lead in the investigation.
Terror police are now in charge of the investigation over the alleged murder of Anne Widdecombe, raising widespread concerns over the safety of politicians in Britain. Also tonight.
So we're doing another very major attack tonight. They want to make a deal. They came back. We made a deal 2 days ago, and they want to make a deal. They've been negotiating for 47 years, but nobody's ever hit them militarily. We're hitting them.
That was President Trump just a few hours ago, pledging a night of fresh strikes on Iran. Of course, the White House have reinstated their blockade in the Strait of Hormuz earlier today. Also tonight. Obviously, we are going to be facing them in the football, but Niall Gardner has been defending the Falklands on social media and getting into a bit of a Twitter spat. Today, we'll tell you all about it. I'm Bev Turner, and this is The Late Show Live. Just tuning in, joining me this evening, Niall Gardner, Laurie Watkins is here in London. We've got Benjamin Butterworth and also Conservative councillor David Moore. Thank you all for joining us tonight. And as my voice becomes less and less, I don't quite know which of you is going to have to take over for the remainder of the evening, but I'm sure you can work it out between you. First of all, though, a shocking new report has raised serious questions tonight over the safety of female migrants in Britain's immigration detention centre. Male detainees were caught looking through the windows of women's bedrooms at a detention centre in Scotland. The Chief Inspector of Prisons has warned female asylum seekers are being put at risk of harm. The report found a staggering 43% of women held at Dungavel Immigration Removal Centre in South Lanarkshire, said that they felt unsafe using outdoor areas, with some refusing to leave their accommodation unless escorted by staff, while male detainees were allowed to move freely around the site. So tonight we have to ask, how can vulnerable women be expected to feel safe in a system that is supposed to protect them? And I would go one step further, Niall, and say, how are women who live in the UK already supposed to feel safe if and when these migrants, these wannabe residents of the UK, are allowed out into society, if they think that's an acceptable way to treat women?
Yeah, exactly. This is absolutely abhorrent and shocking, really, to see this. And it's, it further confirms the immense danger that illegal migration poses actually to the British people, especially to British women. And mass migration has been an absolute disaster for the UK and for Europe, and it poses a fundamental threat to the security of British women. And I don't think that the Labour government has been serious really in addressing what is going on here. And this is yet another scandal relating to the issue of asylum seekers. And the reality is the vast majority of these asylum seekers who are coming over to the UK, they're not fleeing a war zone, they're coming from France. They're coming from the European Union, and the British government's letting them in. And among these so-called asylum seekers or refugees, because they're not genuine, I don't think, are many with very violent backgrounds. They're rapists, murderers, terrorists, and this is the threat that is being imported, frankly, under the auspices of the present Labour government, frankly, with the connivance of the French as well. I mean, France is literally exporting these individuals over to the UK because, of course, the French don't want them on their soil. And they're literally aiding and abetting them coming over to the United Kingdom. And the British government doesn't do anything to stop this from happening. In the meantime, of course, the United States southern border is completely secure after 10 million illegal migrants flooded into the US under the last administration. But that border is now secure. But the British government is unable to secure Britain's borders, even though there's a sea in between, a channel in between the UK and France. And so it's a lack of political will and a lack of, seriousness about this crisis. It is a huge crisis, and yes, it's a fundamental threat to the security of the British people, especially to British women. And this is frankly, that's the biggest scandal of our time. Actually, the mass migration crisis, the refusal of leaders, not only of course in the UK but across Europe, to really address the issue and do anything about it.
And yet, Laurie, when we see people campaigning and these charities, these organisations that want to welcome people who want to live in the UK, asylum seekers, refugees, economic migrants, whatever you want to call them, they're mainly women. There's a lot of what would become described as white liberal women there with a cloak and a hot flask of tea for these guys who have come from deeply patriarchal cultures, as Niall says, who bring with them God knows what baggage, what kind of sexual proclivities they bring with them, whatever sexual crimes they've committed in the past. And as evidenced by these statistics, 43% of women in these migration detention centres feeling at risk from these men. We just have to stop them. You're so lucky here in the UK that your government has stopped this invasion on the southern border.
Yes, I'm going to go back to the women. Like no person even, any gender should, if they're in custody, be unsafe, unwell. Yes, it is supposed to be unpleasant. I'm not saying that it's not supposed to be, but it's not supposed to be a death sentence for people, or where you are in a facility that's supposed to be run by the government and you are sexually assaulted or raped. Or in the United States, there's an explosion going on of young women becoming pregnant and they've been in detention for 3 months, 4 months. How does that happen, right? Meaning that the guards are doing it and those kinds of things. Like, there are horrific things happening every single day. People dying in ICE detention and custody. So I'm very sorry that that is happening. You all have had a much better record than we have on these things. But no woman should feel unsafe, and the fact that 43%, that's a very high number. And I'm sorry that they're feeling that way, but something needs to be done, clearly.
Yeah. Let me go to London on this then. David, this is shocking, this report about the number of women in these immigration centres. These male detainees locking through windows into their bedrooms in Scotland, and the Chief Inspector of Prisons warning that female asylum seekers are being at risk of harm. What do we do about it? I just have this terrible feeling that yet again this is going to land on deaf ears in the Home Office. Do you?
Well, yeah, absolutely. This is horrific, Bev. And the leader of the opposition, Kemi Badenoch, rightfully said that not all cultures are equal when you're importing lots of fighting-age men who come from countries where women can't even dress how they want, where gay people are stoned or thrown off roofs, where FGM, that disgusting practice, is used. And in this case, you have men coming from a lot of those countries, and we are seeing it firsthand in our detention centres. And Labour don't want to tackle this issue because it's not politically correct. They want to shove the issue under the carpet. And I want to give a case study, Bev, because the government tried to put a migrant HMO in my ward, something I campaigned strongly against. We managed to stop it with the help of our wonderful MP, Joy Morrissey. During that time, most of the people that emailed into me were concerned mothers and women. And a lot of them were liberal women, I would say, as well as conservative women, but across their political beliefs, they were concerned. It was next to 5 schools, it was next to areas where a lot of women and children hang out, and that speaks volumes, because deep down in this country, people are very uncomfortable with what's happening with illegal immigration. The people that are coming here, especially the men, hold deeply backward views about women, and we're seeing this firsthand in our detention centres, like this report.
Ben, we are the first to have this report because we've come on air after midnight. It was embargoed until now. This will be a big talking point on, hopefully, a lot of news outlets tomorrow, hopefully not just on GB News. But do you imagine there'll be many Labour MPs coming out tomorrow and saying, this is outrageous, we need to stop these boats coming across for the sake of these women? I'm not going to hold my breath for that.
Well, the number of people coming across on small boats is down by 40% in the first 6 months of this year, and the number of people being deported is up by 20%. Both of those numbers considerably better than it was under the previous government. So, you know, I don't think they need to say it. Thankfully, they're actually doing it. And given that the weather has been extremely good for quite some weeks now, the fact that numbers are down so dramatically and falling faster is obviously a positive sign. It's also the case that no woman, whether they're an asylum seeker, a refugee in one of these places, or any other woman in a confined environment like a prison, should be subjected to this kind of conduct. I don't think we should pretend that British men don't also behave appallingly and that plenty of women are victims of that, but obviously that doesn't mean that there should be more instances of that possible by these people. But look, you know, it's clearly unacceptable, and that's why you shouldn't omit the fact that fewer people are coming over on boats.
Yeah, I think Niall maybe questions some of your numbers there on the numbers coming over, and
well, he's welcome to check them.
Do I a little?
They're down 37%.
So the Trump administration has deported around 1 million people so far, 1 million illegal migrants. Benjamin, how many people has the Labour government actually deported? And you know, you're talking about some 20% increase. How many illegal migrants have actually been thrown out of the UK under this Labour government? I believe it's a very small number of people, and it's unacceptable to have any kind of illegal migration into the UK. The United States has stopped illegal migration down, you know, it's now at zero level. What is the Labour government doing? So, you know, I do think that you know, I mean, Labour's track record is absolutely appalling, and the British people
it's not, Niall. It's almost
hugely
half.
upset over the lack of action being taken by Labour. That was reflected in the recent local elections, where Labour got a real drubbing and humiliation.
Go on, Benjamin.
There shouldn't be anybody coming over here illegally. That's obviously the case. It's not safe, it's not reasonable, it's not responsible. But the figures are down 40% the 6 months of this year compared to the previous year. That is a significant change, and that obviously indicates that the number could be an even greater fall in a year's time as they get a hang on smashing these gangs. Clearly, even Mark White, who is the Home Affairs correspondent or editor of this channel, said himself the other day in a report that actually you can't deny clearly some of Labour's plan is working.
No, I missed the figures. I must have misheard earlier, but I don't think you've outlined any figures with regard to how Labour's addressing this problem.
About 12,500 people have come over in a small boat this year, and it's down 40% the first 6 months of this year compared to the previous year.
Some people are saying here on our your side, Sudha has said the boats are a distraction. Really, the main thing is a student visa for Pakistani students who all then claim asylum. It's a complete lack of common sense from our government. And yet we gave Pakistan £120 million last year, and they've got a space programme, and we haven't. Are we all spending too much time, Benjamin, then looking at the boats when we should be looking elsewhere for people who are overstaying their welcome in the UK?
I mean, it's actually, you know, look, no one should be coming over in a boat. It's just not manageable. But it is correct that there's a considerable proportion of the refugee claims are not from people that have entered by the waters. They're from people that have made a claim for work or study, have got a visa rather for work or study, and then when that expires, they make a claim for refugee status. Now, how you manage that, I don't know. Maybe it's to say that the standards for qualifying are higher. There's clearly a problem with so-called skilled visas, where you need a job that pays, I think, something like £40,000, leading into all sorts of money laundering businesses where they artificially, you know, edit the books in order to justify skilled visas which aren't there. We know, for example, the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, had changed some of the rules because people were coming in to our university sector, getting a loan to study, and then not doing the degree or the course, and taking that money and then reapplying next year. So there are lots of holes in it, there's no doubt about it.
Yeah. OK, guys, a Home Office spokesperson has said we take these findings seriously and are committed to ensuring that the specific needs of women in immigration detention are properly met, including through gender-appropriate staffing, healthcare provisions and safeguarding arrangements. Any allegations of inappropriate behaviour or concerns about safety are investigated thoroughly, with additional safeguarding measures put in place where necessary. Let me know what you think. GBNews.com /your say to get involved this evening. Right, still to come this evening on The Late Show Live.
As an example, we're going to hit them very hard tonight, and we're going to hit them hard tomorrow. And there's not a damn thing they can do about it. They have nothing. They have nothing going other than they have big mouths.
Trump, of course, didn't mince his words, when does it, on plans for a third night of bombing Iran. Meanwhile, Britain has finally banned the IRGC after years of pressure from campaigners. Iran expert Janet Sayer is going to join me in the studio to discuss it all in just a moment. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What we're going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christys tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From cold mornings
to warm family brunches,
from football to tennis in the car,
in the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again to start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter?
So that's a very live question.
Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way. You will not want to miss it, trust me.
The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live. Now, after months of mounting pressure from security chiefs and Labour backbenchers, the British government has finally banned Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, formally designating the organisation as a threat to Britain's national security.
The IRGC itself has a long history of using proxies and criminal networks to target people in the UK, including our Jewish communities. So today, under our new state threat powers, we're designating this criminal group, the Islamic Movement of Companions of the Right, and we're designating anyone found in these groups will now face prison.
So this now means that the IRGC is a prescribed organisation in the UK. That means anyone belonging to it, supporting it or carrying out work on its behalf could face up to 14 years in prison. The decision follows years of growing concern over Iran's activities on British soil. Since 2022, MI5 and counter-terror police have disrupted more than 20 IRGC-linked terror plots, including an alleged plan to assassinate 2 Iranian journalists who were living in the UK. So the announcement also comes as tensions across the Middle East continue to escalate, with President Trump tonight announcing that America will restart its blockade of Iranian ports and impose a 20% charge on goods passing through the Strait of Hormuz, raising fresh fears that hopes of peace in the region remain as distant as ever. With me now is research analyst at the Foundation for the Defence of Democracies, Janatan Sayer. And Janatan, it has been too long since I've had you in my studio. It is so good to see you and bring your experience, your wisdom and your insight to this topic.
Thank you.
Let's start on this prescription of the IRGC in the UK. Why do you think it's taken so long for the British government to do this? And in a sense, why now?
Well, I'm sure it's for political implications. On one hand, we know everything about the current British administration. They tend to appease Islamists, unfortunately. And dare I say, it is a welcome move, but dare I say, it is too little too late, in a sense that the IRGC is yet to be designated as a terror group for what it is. And the implications of that are mostly domestic, because once you prescribe them as a terrorist entity, that gives you more freedom to actually counter their behaviors when it comes to indoctrinating young people inside Britain, the preaching, the Islamization of, dare I say, civil society. That would be covered mostly under a terrorist designation. But that said, still better than nothing, I would say. We're surprised to even see this.
Will the existing mullah in Iran, and we're not quite sure, maybe you can clarify who that is at the moment, who is running the country behind the scenes, will the theocracy be remotely bothered by this? Does it affect them in any way, shape or form?
Ultimately, it does. It's the matter of the extent of it. So we know the IRGC, the mullah, like you said, Mojtaba Khamenei, the establishment as a whole is under numerous sanctions, both by the UK, the EU, and of course the United States. We talk about also secondary sanctions. Here, this prescription, it could be a building block, could be a foundation for actually going further. Perhaps another reason it was delayed because there were other hostages that had UK citizenship that were held inside Iran. Now that's not the case anymore, and the cat's out of the bag. So I know they cited attacks against the Jewish community and just transnational repression, but the IRGC's terrorism activities goes beyond that. So we do have the opportunity to actually step this up and take it up a notch, but we just have to wait and see what the UK decides to do, as the EU did and as the United States did.
What do you make of this idea that President Trump is now in charge of the Strait of Hormuz and will charge 20% to anyone that goes through? He's just trolling the Iranians, isn't he?
It is, and it's about flipping the script on Tehran.
Yeah.
First, the regime blocked the strait. We saw the naval blockade, and now they're throttling further. We see what the president said. Of course, it's great to see the best leverage against the regime be back in place, which was the blockade. It was one of the very few instances, if not only time, the regime was not exporting oil at all. Sanctions can only help so much, but China was not getting those illicit oils anymore, and that has existential implications for the regime, given that the economy is their Achilles heel. That said, I'm looking for one thing. What is the president's long-term plan with this? Is the idea to get behavior change from the Islamic Republic, or is it about weakening them enough to actually follow suit with a systemic transfer of power in Tehran? That's what the Iranian people are hoping for, actually.
And what do you think? I mean, you say we need guidance from the president on that. Do you feel like you haven't had that? Do you feel like he's shelved the ambition to change the rulers, and he'd be happy with the memorandum of understanding, with the denuclearization, with the assessment by the nuclear capability authorities, etc., but to leave the leaders in place? Is he going to be happy with that?
Let's talk about that hypothetical scenario. The issue with that is we're not even close to it. You're talking about a regime that still wants to maintain nuclear capabilities, throttles the strait. And again, this MOU to an extent benefited them more than us. They were getting sanction waivers for it, they were getting funding, and they're actually able to receive payment in their central bank for this as well. And all they had to do was not to attack the strait, and they couldn't even do that. So we're not even close to that hypothetical. And unfortunately, they're putting the president in a box. At this point, it's either the situation becomes the new normal, or we actually finish the job in Tehran.
Is he listening to the right people? because without a shadow of a doubt, some of the smartest analysts I have in this studio is on this topic. It is people like you who understand what the Persian people need. They understand that the regime is an occupation in your country, and everybody, every single one of you is aligned on the idea that you cannot negotiate with this theocratic, dangerous, murderous regime who will wipe out 30,000 of their own people. Does he understand that? Is he listening to enough people?
He is, and the human rights concern is not the only angle with the Islamic Republic. The issue is, first we were talking about a better deal that would put limits on their missile ranges, would curb their terror ambitions in the region, and the nuclear disarmament angle. None of that is on the table anymore. So when we talk about you can't negotiate with terrorists, it is not just because how they repress and murder their own people. It is in America's strategic interest. But to answer your question, yes, he is. He is listening to the right people. The challenge with that is, first you have to exhaust every option. Going with something as dare I say, significant of regime change in the Islamic Republic requires more backing. We need to demonstrate that we exhausted every avenue. The diplomatic angle failed time and time again. And of course, we need to be listening to our allies as well. I'm looking at the Persian Gulf Arab states, Israel, that are under these barrages constantly. And they're not going to see another day if this regime remains in power and of course holds on to his missiles and gets sanctions relief for it.
It's a steep learning curve for journalists, this topic, because it wasn't particularly an area that I certainly was not that invested in, forgive me. A word I heard the other day from one of your commentators, one of the Iranian commentators, was this concept of the Artesh being in opposition to the IRGC and the necessity of arming them and empowering them. Who are the Artesh and what role might they play?
To provide more of a context for that, so you have the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps that we've discussed. It's the ideological military organization, the more dominant one. Has a navy, has an air force, of course has a reconstruction headquarters, controls the economy. It is significantly more powerful than any entity, arguably even more than the current supreme leader. Dare I say, parallel to that, you have the Artesh, which is the conventional army of Iran. In theory, the idea is that they tend to be perhaps less ideological, or that was the case in the early stages of the revolution in 1979. So far, they've had every opportunity to demonstrate that they're more aligned with the Iranian national sentiment, and that might be the case with the main body of that organization, but the leadership does not really differ from the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. If you ask any Iranian on the ground, any approach to the regime would have to be systemic. The idea that you can work with one group against another might play out in the short term, but in the long term, the idea is that you need to rinse the country of this Islamist parasite that unfortunately extends to the Artesh, to the IRGC, to the civilian government as well.
And time again, we express our concern and our anxiety, our worry for the Iranian people themselves. I've heard theories in this studio that the key is to arm the Iranian people somehow, surreptitiously, via intelligence routes or however that can work, so that they can rise up against the IRGC themselves. How realistic is that, Jonathan, and how likely is it to happen?
It is the most realistic scenario if we actually want to see anything happen in Iran. I know it might be logistically challenging, but to just put it simply, I know there's a lot of policymakers in DC that are worried about arming a new militia in the Middle East. But in this context, the threat coming from Iran is not AKs, is not pistols, is missiles and nuclear material. So it's a gamble that cannot harm the United States interests by any means. Let's talk about the calculus being shifted. Right now, regime officials kill with impunity because they don't fear their lives. If there's select groups of dissidents, I'm thinking maybe 100 in each city, that have simply pistols and do acts of sabotage, asymmetrical warfare against the regime, in the long term we can obtain this systemic transfer of power that's very attainable. Last thing on that, we used to think it's an overnight scenario. People rise up in the millions or there's a war, regime collapses. That's not the vision anymore. The idea should be more gradual and actually grassroots movements in the urban areas in the heartland of Iran.
And do we have any idea how good or how possible it is to communicate in and out of Iran at the moment with the people on the street?
Well, the intelligence capabilities of the United States and Israel should not be underestimated by any means. It's going to be logistically challenging. This is not a regime that's, of course, going to give up overnight. But listen, Iranians sacrificed their lives in the tens of thousands fighting for freedom. The aspirations are there. And again, today we saw more protests take place in Iran. And one thing we know about the country is that it's only a matter of time until you see new acts of civic movements. And the resentment is there, the grievances is there, and all these issues are unaddressed. So the Iranian population is prime and is ready for the call that never came. The president said one day he's going to call on everyone to rise up. That didn't arrive, but the Iranians are still awaiting that protest call.
Okay, Jonathan, brilliant as always. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Jonathan Sayer there from the Foundation for the Defence of Democracies. Okay, still to come this evening on The Late Show Live. That was the Argentinian national football team giving their thoughts on the Falklands. But what did Niall Gardner make of the aggression from their government? He's here to tell us, of course. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning. It's time for your GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. And now it is going to be another mostly sunny and hot day for many of us, even though at the moment there's actually quite a bit of cloud around. That cloud has come in from the east overnight, but it is generally going to break up and burn away as we go through this morning. Just some lingering low cloud towards some North Sea coastal parts. Lots of sunshine then by the afternoon, and in that sunshine, well, it's going to feel pretty hot indeed. Temperatures generally ranging from highs in the very high 20s, possibly low 30s towards the south, to the high teens, low 20s towards the north. There is still a bit of a breeze, particularly towards some coastal parts. That will take the edge off the heat a little bit. Into the evening, and there's not a huge amount of change, to be honest. There's some low clouds still around those eastern coastal parts of Scotland. Across central and western areas, however, it's a bright, fine end to the day, similar across much of Northern Ireland. Again, still some cloud around those North Sea coastal parts of England, and that cloud is again going to start to push its way a bit further inland through the end of the evening and overnight. Most places, though, sticking with the largely clear skies for a little while yet. But yes, similar to last night, really, that cloud in the east is going to become more widespread, and there's also the potential for a bit of cloud to come into some southwestern parts. Devon and Cornwall likely to see some cloud at times overnight, but it's going to stay dry. Temperatures holding up for most, so low to mid-teens, high teens in a fair few places, especially towards the south, so feeling pretty warm indeed. Still quite uncomfortable for sleeping. Again, we're going to see most of that cloud that pushes in overnight burning away through tomorrow morning, still just lingering towards those eastern coastal parts for some. Otherwise, a bit of cloud here and there, could be quite high-level clouds, so maybe just turning the sunshine a bit hazy at times, but generally it's looking fine, sunny, and with that, temperatures similar to today, so a good chance of getting into the low 30s. See you later.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Welcome back. So our very own Niall Gardner has been arguing with the Argentine Foreign Minister today. Niall's very naughty of you. Argentina's Foreign Minister Pablo Cuerno posted Malvinas, the strength of a just cause. By history, by right and conviction, the Malvinas are Argentine. And Niall Gardner fired back this. This matter was decisively settled in 1982 with your emphatic defeat. Don't try it again. At which point, Cuerno replied simply, no, it wasn't. Hugs. Please refer to UN Resolution 379 from November 1982. See below. Niall was having none of it. I like to think you learnt some of this in this studio now. It's taken it on. And retweeted this with Argentina illegally invaded British sovereign territory and was emphatically defeated by Great Britain under the leadership of my former boss, Margaret Thatcher. You have no claim to the Falklands. The Falkland Islanders are British and the Falklands will remain forever British. And he finished it off with a bang. Niall, did you teach him some manners. Oh, there we go. This is what he finished it off with. A picture of Margaret Thatcher. You can cry at the UN all you like, Argentina. The Iron Lady decisively settled the matter of British sovereignty over the Falkland Islands in 1982. The Falklands are British forever. Niall Gardner. I blame social media. I don't know about you, Laurie.
Yeah.
It's putting these teenagers on social media and it all kicks off, doesn't it? Go on, just reflect on this today. Did you expect him to come back at you when you went in there first time?
No, I mean, it's fairly unusual for a foreign minister to, to reply on X, but clearly this is such a sensitive issue for our Argentine friends that they clearly have to respond. And I'm simply outlining the facts as they exist. The Falkland Islands are British. We fought a war to liberate the islands from Argentine tyranny in 1982. My former boss Margaret Thatcher led that campaign to liberate the Falkland Islands. And the matter is decisively settled. There are about 3,000 Falkland Islanders. They are nearly all British. They want to remain British. There was a referendum, of course, held on this issue where 99.8% voted to remain as a British overseas territory. The islands do not belong to Argentina. They never have. In fact, they're about 300 miles off the coast of Argentina. And nearly all of the inhabitants are British. And so this is a matter of British sovereignty and self-determination. And, the Argentines can cry all they want, they can saber rattle all they want, but the reality is that the Falkland Islands are British and they always will be British. There's nothing Argentina can do about it. And the UK actually has significantly enhanced the defences of the Falkland Islands over the course of the last few decades. There is a British airbase there. There is a constant British naval presence. There's usually a British nuclear submarine prowling in those waters in the South Atlantic, capable of sending any Argentine ship to the bottom of the Atlantic. So it's not a good idea for the Argentines to pick another fight. And they would be decisively defeated. And at the end of the day, sovereignty and self-determination really matter. And the British people will fight to defend their sovereignty and self-determination, as we saw with the Falklands War in 1982. And so poor sensitive soul, the Argentine foreign minister, clearly, upset about Britain's huge victory in 1982, and still, they're still whining about it. And why didn't they move on and accept reality here?
Isn't it a funny age that we live in, Laurie, when the potential for war is discussed between important people on X, I'm including you in that now. But the foreign minister of Argentina gets involved in a Twitter spat about something which could be militarily absolutely huge. And then you tie into that the fact that we're playing them in the World Cup on Wednesday night as well, and all this old grievance will come out again. I don't know whether you have a strong opinion on whether the UK should still have possession of the Falklands, whether they should be ours, or whether Argentina shouldn't have been defeated in the 80s when they tried to take them over. Your thoughts on the whole thing, really?
Well, we've talked about the islands for a long time because of Keir Starmer and an investor, right, friend or something or other, and giving ownership over to whatever. We've talked about it here. I don't really have a say on that, but I will go by what the historians say. I believe what Niall is saying. But I will go so far as to say I'm not surprised at all. Your question of, are we surprised that this is happening on social media? No, Bev, when our president here in the United States of America goes onto social media to announce that he's going to attack another country or give the rationale for why, or whatever, make major foreign policy or domestic policy announcements by way of tweet.
Yeah, this is just a view of our age, is it, Niall? You're as bad as the president. Winding people up on X. Very effective, though.
I think that President Trump, of course, is the master of X, and he's very decisive in the messaging that he sends. And it's important to respond to figures like the Argentine foreign minister. I mean, this is a serious government in Buenos Aires. I mean, they're actually a good ally of the United States. but they engage in this sort of very emotional saber rattling. You know, what it does, of course, is, you know, fosters, you know, I think you have all these Argentines up in arms, of course, ahead of the World Cup, you know, game. They're all excited about that. But you know, the reality is, we thrash them on the battlefield. 1982. We'll thrash them on the football pitch on Wednesday. It'll be another big England victory. I'm looking forward to that. You know, the Argentines just have to accept the reality of the world as it is, really.
Benjamin and David in London. David, let me come to you on this first of all then. The Argentinians just have to accept that we thrash them on the battlefield and we'll thrash them on the pitch as well. Just your thoughts on that, my friend.
I completely share Niall's sentiments. It just so happens that we found a lot of oil off the coast of the Falklands, and suddenly Argentina wants to have their so-called fair share. It is also important to note, when there are domestic issues in Argentina, they use the Falklands War or the Falkland Islands, sorry, as the bogeyman to distract from the real issues. Let me be absolutely clear. The Falklands Islands had a referendum in 2013. I think it was 2013, around that time, and it was firmly said in self-determination terms it wanted to remain British. I believe it was 98%. Clear mandate to remain British. And despite that, despite the rules on self-determination, which says it is British, Argentina is citing this so-called UN resolution saying they want it. But it is not a legitimate claim. As Thatcher said before, the islands are British, they will remain British and always will be British, and I obviously hope that we have a good football win to reinforce that clear claim we have on it.
Benjamin,
can I ask, do you guys feel the same way about Greenland when President Trump talks about that, like citing these old, ridiculous, there was a waiver of this and they really intended this? I mean, did you guys feel like that? I'm just curious about the United States making threats about taking European territory.
It's very different, really, Greenland, and I'll explain.
I don't want to divert the. I just
the
comparison. I'm like,
it is a little different, Benjamin. But I think what the anxiety, I think, from maybe British people, and maybe Niall can confirm or deny this, is that given what we've done with the Chagos Islands, or what it appears we're going to do with the Chagos Islands, there's a sort of nervousness, perhaps, that we might be okay with also giving away the Falklands. That's to the point that Laurie alluded to. Like we're developing a bit of form in this area. Now I know there's a legal issue around the Chagos, which is different, but is that a light? Do you have that fear, Niall?
Well, you know, I think that Keir Starmer has been the most sort of, Keir's been the most weak-kneed and lily-livered, Prime Minister in British history, frankly, and there's no end to the treachery that he's capable of. So there have been legitimate fears about weakness from this British government with regard to the Falklands, because once you start giving away British territory like the Chagos Islands, and thankfully President Trump intervened, sank this treacherous deal that Starmer wanted to sign. But once you start down that path of giving away British territory, then that threatens the long-term future of the Falkland Islands, Gibraltar, and our opponents, adversaries, in this case Argentina and also Spain with regard to Gibraltar. They will take advantage of that, any sense of weakness. And I think that the Argentines, with all the saber rattling, they are sensing weakness in Downing Street with Keir Starmer, who's on the way out, and Andy Burnham, according to the Foreign Office, has pledged to continue with the Chagos surrender deal, which is absolutely insane, considering it's going to cost the British taxpayer £35 billion for the benefit of handing over British territory to Chinese ally Mauritius. And so this emboldens our enemies and adversaries, actually. And this is a big part of why I think the Argentine government feels emboldened to put out these silly tweets, about UN resolutions on the Falklands. And, do they seriously think, the United Nations is going to send some big army over to the Falkland Islands? I mean, it's utterly pathetic, isn't it? But Keir Starmer's weakness, Andy Burnham's weakness as the new Prime Minister, he's probably coming in on Monday as the new PM. This actually emboldens those who wish harm actually to British sovereignty and to British interests, actually.
Let me ask you, Niall, on Andy Burnham being instated on Monday coming into 10 Downing Street. There is a possibility that we might win the World Cup on Saturday night, Laurie. If we win the World Cup and Andy Burnham has to ride into number 10 on a wave of national success, the glory in which he will be basking, will that take the edge off the World Cup victory for you?
No. I mean, I believe firstly that England can win the World Cup.
I think they might.
That they will win the World Cup, and it doesn't matter who's in Downing Street. This is not a political matter. And although, of course, Burnham and the Labour Party and the Socialists will try and claim some kind of credit.
Of course he will.
But for the vast majority of the English people, they will be celebrating, hopefully, a historic victory, and I think Andy Burnham will be a sort of speck on the horizon, frankly.
He'll take credit. Donald Trump, he'll invite them to the White House, and then he'll take credit because he'll say,
may well do
he was
that.
here, we hosted it, you owe us. Andy Burnham, see you.
He may have a point.
He may do that. He may well do that.
You're probably right. But I have to say, I think Trump could take more credit if we win the World Cup, maybe, than Andy Burnham, because Andy Burnham's got nothing to do with it, whereas Trump and his administration have put on the most remarkable tournament here in America.
The World Cup's been absolutely magnificent, and it's been a great uniting.
Tainted the US's chances too.
It's been
I agree, he did. He did. There's no doubt about it.
He put like a black cloud, a hex, whatever you want to call it. It was awful.
I totally agree.
I think the World Cup's been a great uniting force for the American people. I think everyone's rallied around the country. It's a shame about the defeat to Belgium, but Belgium is one of the top sides in the world.
Just picture it now, Niall. Andy Burnham's going into number 10 on Monday morning. He is an Oasis fan.
Yeah.
Wonderwall is the theme tune for the England team at the World Cup. Andy Burnham is the poster boy for Oasis. He's also a massive football fan. He plays in a local football team. It's going to hurt you to see Andy Burnham going there with us having won the World Cup.
But the glory of victory will completely outshine.
Yeah, let it go. Your team wins. Who cares?
Anything that Andy Burnham may claim credit for. So, yes.
I'm having a bit of fun with it. I mean, we do, don't let it take the edge off. If we win on Saturday, it will be absolutely just what the country needs, isn't it? We need something to feel good about. We need to be reminded that we are English and we are amazing. Right, the Education Secretary has hit back at Kemi Badenoch. Class warrior label in a new social media video. Have a look at this.
I just want to say a big thank you to everyone who's been in touch in recent weeks with some really kind comments. I think it is safe to say that I'm not the only spiteful class warrior out there, and I'm going to run through some of the brilliant t-shirts that people have very kindly sent me. Starting off with the t-shirt from Guido, very, very quick off the mark, as they always are. However, I think it will be a bit weird to be wandering around with a t-shirt with a massive picture of myself on the front, so thanks to the team there, but I'm going to have to park that one for now. Charlie, my constituent, very kindly sent me this red t-shirt. Thanks very much, Charlie. Always appreciate your support. This one here was from a printing firm in Norwich, and I really like the retro vibes of the t-shirt. Nice Clash theme to it, can't go wrong with the Clash. And very finally, a friend just took the time to send us this t-shirt. So a few to choose from. Let me know which you think is the best, which you prefer.
So if you're listening on the radio, she's got two t-shirts that say spiteful class warrior on them. What do you make of that, Laurie? I don't know whether you're familiar with Bridget Phillipson. She's put VAT on private school fees, so she's increased private school fees by 20%. She argues that she would say we want to fund more teachers. There's no evidence of that yet. All she's done is close down several private schools because they can't afford to stay open, and she's forced parents who are hard-working professionals to take their children out of private school because they can no longer afford the fees, and she's revelling in this, frankly, in my opinion, causing division and hate between social class. What do you think?
I don't know if I would know enough about it, but yeah, I don't know what the original post and on all the feedback or the likes and numbers and analytics that it got, but clearly she wanted to respond in her own way.
But is it right, though?
You could tell she thinks it's cheeky and
is it right
smart ass?
Because she is our socialist government, she is our left-wing education secretary, who is owning the idea that she is poking fun and undermining the kind of upper middle class, however you describe it. In the UK, we have a much more distinct class system than you do here in America. That she's throwing stones at the hard-working middle classes or the lower upper class, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
No, absolutely not, if that's what she's doing.
Yeah.
No, and you're making kids feel less than, or that they're not on the same playing field as other kids, and I'm sure the parents are feeling like that too, and it just creates more division, as we've talked about for the last 2.5, almost 3 hours. Like, we don't need any more of that, especially when it comes to kids and schools. We should be setting kids up for success so they feel like they're equal, not that one is better than the other.
Yeah, and
well said, Laurie.
Yeah, well said, Laurie.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But also, I think it's about aim low. That's all I keep hearing from Bridget Phillipson. Aim low. Don't aspire to be so wealthy that you can send your kids to private school, because it is not cheap.
Yeah.
You know, just stay with us. Let's just throw stones at the working people.
Yeah, it's very sad to see this class warfare from Labour. After all, a lot of working class parents, they work extremely hard to send their children to private schools.
Or the grandparents fund it a lot of the time.
Exactly,
in the UK.
and it is ironic as well, I think, that so the Labour Party used to be really a working class party and no longer is. And you know, Reform is far more of a working class party than the Labour Party. And the reality is that you know, Labour has become more the party of the elites these days, and yet they still engage in this you know, old sort of class warfare, punishing, frankly, very hard-working working class families who want their children to go to some of the best schools in the country. And you know, I have to say, it is spiteful. It is class warfare. So that T-shirt actually is a very accurate depiction of the Labour Party's education policy.
Because she's basically owning it. She's saying, yeah, I am spiteful. I am a class warrior.
Yeah, and she's proud of it. I mean,
but I don't know who she thinks that appeals to. Because I don't know anybody that isn't a hard... Do you know who the only people it appeals to, literally the only people, are those sat at home on benefits.
Yeah.
They are the people who would like it. If you are a working person, if you've got a small business, if you run a pub, or you've got you're a painter and decorator, whatever it is, you're working hard, you're grafting, you're trying to make ends meet, you're trying to provide the best for your family. You don't actually want to poke fun at people who are doing well, because you want to be one of them.
Yeah,
so don't know how she feels,
exactly.
who she thinks it appeals to.
Yeah, I think it's... you know, and this is a problem as well with the UK right now, especially under Labour. The politics of low aspiration, really, and you compare that to the United States, really, where, you know, the American people celebrate success, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what political party you're from. The vast majority of Americans, they admire success, hard work, and they love the American dream. But in Britain, you have a sense of quite the opposite, actually, where often people are dragged down rather than raised up. And it's very sad to see that, actually.
We've only got 2 minutes. I think we've lost our boys in London because they had some issues with their tech. Oh, I think we've got them back now.
They're back, yeah.
I'm really torn now because I wanted to talk to Benjamin about the class war issue with Bridget Phillipson, but I also want to know what Niall thinks about Prince Harry meeting King Charles. Can I just wrap this up with you? I'm sorry, but no, Benjamin, let me come to you both. Bridget Phillipson, just briefly, 10 seconds. Is she just trolling the working people of the UK who want to do well and aspire to better things? Ben?
Well, she's got a good sense of humour, and I've never heard so much tosh as what I was just subjected to from Niall Gardner. Working class parents are not sending their kids to private schools, given that the average private school fee is about... No, I'll give it over. The average private school fee is about £18,000 a year.
Most families are sending their children to private schools.
I know you've lived in the US for a very long time, but given that most people have 2 kids, the average private school fee is £18,000 a year. Tell me the working class person with 36 grand a year left over. There ain't none. You have to be really quite wealthy.
There are scholarships available as well, and they're working very hard. They're working very hard, actually, and you shouldn't be
No one has got 36 grand spare after owning a house that can take 2 kids. The idea that's a working class person is nonsense. That is class warfare.
I was thinking about immigrant parents or people that have come to your country, and please don't go, oh, the people that are trying to rip off this. I'm not talking about them. That They are absolutely working class people who, I guarantee you, 80% of what they make is going to their kids' education because they want a better life for their kids. That includes some of those parents that they feel mocked. They feel belittled by somebody talking to them like that they are literally working their backs off.
David,
3 jobs to send their kids to school.
Just 10 seconds, David. If you are one of these people who, as Benjamin says, is too poor to send your kids to private school,
93%.
Do you enjoy Bridget Phillipson? Yeah, but do you? No. I get that. But do you want Bridget Phillipson to be engaging in such rhetoric?
Certainly not. I was majority state educated. I went to state comp, I got into grammar school, I spent a bit of time at private school, and I can tell you now that parents will remortgage their house to send their children to a good school or grammar school. But when Labour shut down all the grammar schools, a lot of people then started sending their children to private school.
I'm afraid we've run out of time, guys. Thank you for watching at home. Thank you, Niall Gardner, Laurie Watkins, Benjamin Russell, David. See you tomorrow night.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning. It's time for your GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. And now it is going to be another mostly sunny and hot day for many of us, even though at the moment there's actually quite a bit of cloud around. That cloud has come in from the east overnight, but it is generally going to break up and burn away as we go through this morning. Just some lingering low cloud towards some North Sea coastal parts. Lots of sunshine then by the afternoon, and in that sunshine, well, it's going to feel pretty hot indeed. Temperatures generally ranging from highs in the very high 20s, possibly low 30s towards the south, to the high teens, low 20s towards the north. There is still a bit of a breeze, particularly towards some coastal parts. That will take the edge off the heat a little bit. Into the evening, and there's not a huge amount of change, to be honest. There's some low clouds still around those eastern coastal parts of Scotland. Across central and western areas, however, it's a bright, fine end to the day, similar across much of Northern Ireland. Again, still some cloud around those North Sea coastal parts of England, and that cloud is again going to start to push its way a bit further inland through the end of the evening and overnight. Most places, though, sticking with the largely clear skies for a little while yet. But yes, similar to last night, really, that cloud in the east is going to become more widespread, and there's also the potential for a bit of cloud to come into some southwestern parts, Devon and Cornwall, likely to see some cloud at times overnight, but it's going to stay dry. Temperatures holding up for most, so low to mid-teens, high teens in a fair few places, especially towards the south, so feeling pretty warm indeed, still quite uncomfortable for sleeping. Again, we're going to see most of that cloud that pushes in overnight burning away through tomorrow morning, still just lingering towards those eastern coastal parts for some. Otherwise, a bit of cloud here and there, could be quite high-level clouds, so maybe just turning the sunshine a bit hazy at times, but generally it's looking fine, sunny, and with that, temperatures similar to today, so a good chance of getting into the low 30s. See you later.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates,
5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5.
You got me good there.
Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racist tonight on the
Unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace
Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me. Do you trust what you're being told? Good, because neither do I.
Those are just facts.
I'm Alex Armstrong, and on my show, we'll expose the spin.
Well, I want to answer that because you didn't let me last time, because you always speak over me.
The broken promises.
To deny that is denying the truth.
And the hypocrisy.
We can allow.
Stop.
We can allow.
Politics, policy, parliament. Nothing is off limits. No sugarcoating, no fear of offence, just the truth laid bare. Tune in every Saturday and Sunday at 9 p.m. for Alex Armstrong Tonight, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The GB News audience is different, it's unique, because they see through the nonsense.
We want to debate with each other, we want to listen and maybe learn.
We have a chat. That's what we do. We try and have a chat.
They'll watch my programme while they're eating their tea, they'll watch breakfast while they're busy getting their kids ready for school.
We want to hear what matters to you, what is news for you.
And what's brought you out here today?
What are the biggest issues affecting this particular area?
The audience are the best thing about GB News.
Their friends, their family.
They're people who need to have their voices heard.
They're passionate about the channel, they're passionate about what they believe in.
The one thing about GB News is you get a chance to speak.
Talk to me about why so many people have gathered here today.
Do you want to say something back in return? The GB News audience is what makes GB News special.
It's incredible to see.
They shape our programmes, they shape our output, and they shape our channel.
That's what makes us the fearless champion of Britain.
It's 9 p.m. I'm Patrick Christys. Tonight,
circumstances of her death are extremely distressing. Counter-terrorism policing have now taken the lead in the investigation.
so counter-terrorism police are now leading the investigation into Anne Widdecombe's murder. So why did the police keep saying this?
We work closely with our partners and have consulted counter-terrorism policing as part of our initial inquiries. The incident is not being treated as terrorism.
And why is Nigel Farage being criticised for this? Well, in other news, Labour has finally prescribed the IRGC as a terrorist organisation. What does that mean now for the thousands of their supporters here in Britain? And well, Labour is going to use Pakistani visas as leverage to deport a rape gang ringleader, plus a village holds a referendum to leave the UK so it doesn't become an illegal migrant dumping ground. Plus,
I left the north again, I travelled south again. Well, there's a bit of a Smiths lyric there for you.
oh my God. It's official, Andy Burnham gets the nominations and will be the most undemocratic Prime Minister in British history. On my panel tonight, we have got Daily Express columnist Carol Malone, journalist Benjamin Butterworth, and Reform UK's Sir Jake Berry. And this guy...
This is my account yesterday. This is me 2 nights ago, basically bathing myself with a bottle of water. And then this was me yesterday, 2 hours before, crying my eyes out at the side of the road in a foreign country all by myself in the middle of nowhere.
is dribbling a football all the way from Africa to England to raise money for a hospice, and he will be joining us on our show tonight. Let's raise a few quid for him, shall we? So get ready, Britain. Here we go. There's something very odd about the reaction to Anne Widdecombe's death. Next. Yes, well, good evening, everybody, and it's good to be back after a couple of weeks away, although, of course, we do have to start with the incredible, sad and tragic news of Anne Widdecombe's untimely passing. And today, the alleged murder of Anne Widdecombe took an astonishing new twist. Assistant Chief Constable Matt Longman of Devon and Cornwall Police said this on camera just a couple of days ago.
We work closely with our partners and have consulted counter-terrorism policing as part of our initial inquiries. The incident is not being treated as terrorism.
They also said that they did not believe it was politically motivated.
At this time, again, it's early stages of the investigation, so we'll remain open-minded. At this time, I've got no information to believe that that is a politically motivated crime.
Very quick out the traps with that. 3 times over the course of the last few days, they have been at pains to tell us, not terror, not politically motivated. Now today, it's emerged that new information and evidence has come to light, and counter-terror police are now leading on the investigation into Anne's death. Now, in the next hour, I'm going to talk more about what this means for the safety of political figures, about trust or lack of with our police forces. But now, I just want to pay tribute to national treasure Anne Widdecombe. Anne actually stood